Hi, everybody out there in podcast land, and welcome to Poddy Wood, the show where we talk about movies with the people who make movies. I am your recovering from COVID again co-host, Steve Hester, and with me as always is...
Yes, this is kind of like the COVID passport episode. You've got the COVID and I've got the passport.
Yeah.
My name is Andrew Roger Carson. I am your co-host this very eve. This is not the mini-sode. We are back to some kind of regular format this week.
Some kind of regular, anyway.
Some kind of. Steve is on his second bout with COVID.
Yay!
That he didn't pick up from Derbyshire, but he could have picked up from Salford. Who knows?
Oh God, no! I've never been near Salford in the last year, as far as I can help it. No, it just basically came out of nowhere. My partner came down with it, and I spent then like about a week sleeping on the couch, trying to look after the kids and just generally going nuts, trying to keep them from killing each other and going off to work and doing all kinds of dad stuff. And then in the end, it didn't really matter because I ended up coming down with it as well.
It was bound to happen.
It's bound to, yeah.
It's bound to. When one's got it, you're all getting it.
Yeah.
That's the thing. It's a day of celebration because we are recording this on the 4th of July. Oh, wait a minute. The 4th of July. How very weird. Because What's in the Box last week was born on the 4th of July. And I'm going to be honest with you. I only realized today when we were doing the show, it was like, oh my God, that's the freakiest occurrence. It was not a setup, I swear to God. It honestly did fall out because originally it was going to be 101 Dalmatians.
Yes, that's true.
You've seen that.
That's true, because Andy does have a box, and in that box are loads of titles of films, and it just so happened that this was the one that got brought out. But yeah, Oliver Stone, 1989. Which makes a change from 2007. Oliver Stone, the height of his powers, with Tom Cruise starring as Ron Kovic. Although Ron COVID might be a better idea for today. The Vietnam veteran who decided that he was going to write his life down in a book and then went on to be a speaker about veterans' rights. It's a story about how he was... a young man and how he got drafted into the army, how he was injured during his time in Vietnam, and how he came out, and basically how he was treated post-injury. And there's a couple of really horrifying scenes of just medical neglect going on in this so-called veterans hospital, which is like something out of a third world country.
It's like being on Booper.
Yeah, or in Salford. And it's just mucky, and there's rats everywhere, and there's fecal matter just being dropped onto the floor, and it's horrible. And then he comes out, and he's effectively being sworn at and spat at by the very people that he thought he was going over to defend democracy for. And it's kind of a thing which has been said by a lot of Vietnam veterans, particularly towards the later stages of the Vietnam War, of which I didn't realise lasted around about 20 years, because I looked it up. It was between about 1955 and 1975, and it featured different kind of arenas.
Oh, yeah.
But I always thought it was kind of like this period of about maybe 7 or 8 years where the war was happening. I had no idea it was that long.
Oh, and then it just carried it on in the 80s by having every single Vietnam veteran being a burned-out psychopath in
pretty
your action
much.
movies.
Yeah. That was kind of like the default case going past that was, no, if you're in Vietnam, you're either massively scarred physically or massively scarred mentally, you know?
Yeah.
You're either had no legs and were burnt to a crisp after experiencing napalm, or you were mentally battered like John Rambo was in the original Rambo movie. You know, there was no in-between. But then again, I don't suppose anybody really comes back from war the same person that they were before. This movie, it touches on that, and Oliver Stone himself, he was a Vietnam veteran. He came back. Was he awarded the Purple Heart? I think he was.
I think so. I know that he and Ron Kovic got the same awards, the same kind of, what's the word? Not merit.
Honours.
Honours, that's the word. Yeah, I know that they share the same kind of honours, which is where this natural kinship between the two of them came.
Yeah, because I know that the Purple Heart is if you've been wounded in the line of duty. That's where that one comes from.
Yeah.
I mean, getting back to the movie, what you have here is you have quite a nice example of Oliver Stone deep delving into something which for him was very personal, and
Yeah.
I think it shows in the movies that he did round about this period. And I know Bill's not a big fan of it for very very personal reasons, but I'm a fan of the movie JFK.
Yeah.
And even
True.
though he plays very, very fast and loose with a lot of the subject matter and the stories behind what exactly went on, you can tell he was putting a lot of effort into that as a filmmaker, and he's putting an awful lot of effort into it here as well. There is some very, very heart-wrenching scenes, particularly when COVID comes back and he's drunk
When
and he's...
COVID comes back.
Is that what I said? Did I say COVID? Okay.
It's
It's in my brain! Get out of my brain!
It is heart wrenching, but for different reasons.
Yeah. But yeah, he gets drunk and he comes back and he's talking with his family about how he just feels like he's been victimized and just ignored and forgotten, and the people that he was fighting for are completely just throwing him under the bus, and he just kind of breaks down, and it's heart wrenching. You know, it's heart wrenching to see. And then that's kind of gets swapped on its head, and you end up with him having a wheelchair battle with Willem Dafoe in the third act.
Yeah, which was actually the very last thing that was shot in this movie.
But yeah, I wouldn't say that it was my favourite film that I've seen of the Vietnam War. I mean, there's been other stuff that has come out of What's in the Box, which I thought was more affecting. And there are parts of this where I just think he seems to be so obsessed with creating this time span of a movie that it feels like it's missing parts. It just kind of feels like there's bits which need to kind of just plug up the gaps. Like he goes from being basically like 19 and wanting to join the military to being 54 within the space of about 3 years. And I think that's kind of like to do with the costume and the hair, the wig. The wig and the mustache do not do him any favors. Let's be really really honest about this. They do not do any favors. Whoever did those needs to be fired. Because I have seen some terrible makeup jobs, but oh dear, that was shocking.
But you see, the thing is, when you look at Oliver Stone, and it's a love or hate. I think over more recent years, it's not been the same Oliver Stone when you see some of the movies that he's pushed down. But when you look at his Mount Rushmore, I would actually put this on his Mount Rushmore, along with JFK. I will put that up there. I'll put Wall Street up there. And controversially, I'd be stuck between Platoon and Natural Born Killers for different reasons. Okay. But I do think, I mean, you've with What's in the Box, you've really got to look at it in two different time windows. How you're watching it now and how the film was back when it was released.
Yes, because this would have been a much more of a raw nerve for the American people then as it was now.
Exactly. And I remember when it came, I saw the movie when it came out, and I saw Platoon when it came out, I saw Heaven and Earth when that came out, and you have to look at these films at how it kind of reflects the world attitudes of the time, right? Because that's what film is. It's a time window. And looking at this back then, Vietnam War, it was still an incredibly touchy subject, even though a Vietnam movie was being released every single week on VHS or TV. The 80s became the decade of the Vietnam movie. And I kind of look at this film around that time. It's kind of great because there was something different going on with actors back then.
What do you mean?
And look at the ensemble cast you have throughout this movie.
Oh, yeah.
There are names everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I was doing that while I was watching it. It's like, oh, look, there's Tom Berenger.
There's Tom Sizemore.
Yeah.
There's John C. McGinley.
Yeah, I noticed that you barely see his face, but you can tell by the tone of his voice. And he's wearing a pink suit, and I wonder if that was kind of linked in with Wagons East a few years later.
Yeah, I mean, a nice Wagons East reference.
Yeah,
that film's been forgotten about ever since.
Oh yeah, you also have Wayne Knight in there as well.
Yeah. It is packed to the gills, full of actors who just came in, and all of these stars, all of these movie stars, they didn't receive an upfront salary for this movie because Universal really wanted to keep the costs down because they didn't fancy its chances of, really turning any money. They didn't even have any faith. I mean, this was Universal. They didn't have any faith that Tom Cruise could handle this role. And originally it was going to go to our boy Charlie Sheen, reprising obviously his working relationship since Platoon with Oliver Stone. And they were not set on Tom Cruise playing this role. They didn't think that he could handle this level of drama. I mean, obviously they never watched Cocktail, but this was kind of where that period of Tom kind of establishing how far he'll go for a role. Apparently, there's a story going around that he and Oliver Stone actually wanted to use an actual nerve agent to cause temporary paralysis. So, right. Compared to the levels Tom Cruise goes to on his movies, that's actually pretty tame.
Yeah. Okay, Tom. We want you to make sure that you can't walk through this movie. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna shoot you through the back with a shotgun. You don't actually think that they will go that far, but they had those conversations, don't you? It got brought up at some point.
Well, apparently They stopped the conversations on it because apparently they couldn't find one that was actually safe to use in that kind of scenario. But in speaking about the cast, I mean, you've got plenty of people from Platoon there, quite a few people from the Oliver Stone catalogue. I think he must have had access to an amazing amount of talent, and for God's sake, this movie has 3 Baldwins in it.
I only spotted the one.
One more and they could rival South Park the movie.
Eric Barron.
All the Baldwins are dead?
I only saw, which one was it? Stephen, who was playing his mate. He gets listed down in the credits, but I didn't notice the
William is there in the kind of Mexican hotel scene with Willem Dafoe and Tom Sizemore and a few others. The other Baldwin, he's in there as well.
Yeah, somewhere.
There's Baldwins all over the place. Chuck them in there. Backdraft is around the corner.
Actually, before we go speaking of cameo, did you see the Oliver Stone cameo as well?
Oh, yes.
As the reporter earlier on in the film.
Yes. Yeah. Ron Kovic is actually in there as well.
Is he now?
The real Ron Kovic is in the parade scene at the beginning.
Oh, right.
When the little Tom Cruise boy is admiring all of the soldiers who come back, all the wounded vets. Ron Kovic is one of those people there. You have to go back and watch it.
Oh. Maybe not. Okay.
I've got to kind of go back now to when I first saw this movie. And it was on... funnily enough, it was on... Do you remember back in the day you had Sky Movies and the Movie Channel?
Yeah.
This was one of the first movies of the Movie Channel when the Movie Channel was incorporated into Sky. How nerdish is that? But that was the first time I did see this movie. And then I ended up getting an ex-rental copy of it for £6. And the reason why it was £6 is because the front of the tape had been chewed up, so they cut off the beginning 1 minute of the movie and all the trailers.
Well, to be honest, that's not so much of a bad thing, because one thing Oliver Stone does tend to do is just massively blown out and really overindulgent credit sequences. And that showed up a lot in this movie. Just there looking at it, go, oh my, I looked away at one point and was just waiting for things to kind of like start up, and I just looked back up and it's like, oh my God, are the credits still going?
Yeah, well, maybe it's to just play that John Williams music that has been used in every single theatrical trailer every year since. We all know it is. And it's a brilliant score, so why not? It's just been so overused now that you know every beat of it. I think Tom Cruise really landed with this movie. I know a lot of people point to Rain Man, but he was still in the kind of... He was playing the young character back then, and this was the first movie past Cocktail, I believe. Oh. So he did this kind of in between Cocktail and Days of Thunder. So he already had his eyes on transferring out of the teen kind of popcorn movies and into becoming a serious actor, and it worked for this. The hair and the mustache didn't work.
Oh God!
Because he started looking like Al Leong.
There was this definite moment later on, and I think it was when he was in Mexico. I just thought, oh my God, there is no way that you could possibly grow a mustache that that well. He just looks like the kind of person who does not naturally have facial hair. Like, I naturally have facial hair.
Yeah.
I'm one of those kind of hefty people that can, I can grow a beard.
Yeah, it's not often you see Tom Cruise with a beard and mustache in movies after this.
Mm-mm.
I think you can probably count on one hand the amount of movies where he does. One thing I did notice from watching it again this week, the movie is brilliantly edited. I'm a big fan of the whole editing process, and it really does deliver on this, even though it obviously takes over the span of so many years. And the editors were David Brenner and Joe Hutching.
As in Gillian Hutching.
Well, I don't think there's a relation there, but is there possibly? Is it a very common editor name? I don't know.
I don't know. Is it?
I had to look it up, but apparently I don't see no correlation. But I'm sure Gillian can clear me on that one.
One thing that I will notice before we actually get onto kind of wrapping this up, and one thing which did stick out for me, is when he's in the hospital, he keeps calling for a nurse called Washington, and was there saying, "Oh, I've been pressing this thing for ages and you've not come." So basically, someone's been asking for help for a long time and Washington hasn't done a damn thing. Political satire at its finest. Ha-boom!
Very true. Very true. I didn't pick up on that, but very well done.
See,
you do watch these movies.
I do watch these things. I don't just go on Wikipedia and try and get the notes.
No. Okay, so it is from Born on the 4th of July to another kind of anniversaries.
We watch them again all of the time, or we get them on Prime for free. But we only know how old they are when we learn their anniversary.
Yes, I'm speeding through my segues because I got a flight to catch in the morning. Yes,
Yeah,
everybody, by the time you hear this, I will be in New York. We will be prepping for what will hopefully be our successful first streaming live episode where you will see our beautiful faces, or in Steve's case, hopefully he's recovered from COVID at the time.
Yeah, so I don't look like just a great big bag of shit. Well, no, I already look like a great big bag of shit, but less of a bag of shit. Perhaps a small pack. I look like a packet of shit instead.
Or an oven-ready meal for one. But also, just to let you know, way back when we first started Poddywood, our first guest was Becca Marks, and seeing as though that we are doing our first live stream, guess who is joining us for that episode?
Paul Hogan.
Fucking hell, that was a good guess. Yes, it's Becca Dowell Dundee herself. Becca Marks will be joining us live, all the way from Connecticut, which is where I'm going to be. So we'll just, we have no idea what the concept of the show is going to be. We're just going to freestyle it and have some fun. So feel free to join us.
Yeah, we're just going to wing it.
Yeah. I think we're doing it on a Monday.
Pass.
I don't know. Well, check Facebook. We'll decide. I've got to get there first.
It'll be on at some point.
Yeah, but I'll report in on... Oh, hang on a minute. Speaking of reports, 20 years ago this week, Steve, Minority Report was released.
Oh, we're having a Tom Cruise marathon today, aren't we?
And a John Williams one.
Oh, yes. Did he do the music for this one as well?
He did do the music for this movie as well.
Spielberg, of course he would have done. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Well, Minority Report. Have you seen it?
I think I saw like the back hour of it. I've got to be honest. I've said this to many people. I'm not a fan of Tom Cruise. So when a new Tom Cruise movie comes out, I'm not champing at the bit to go see it. So yeah, I kind of put off watching this for a while, and then I saw, like I say, the back half of it, and thought it was just it's okay. You know, he's being chased. He has to prove his innocence. Yeah, it's like it's The Fugitive, but with,
I was about to say,
but with
were you
sci-fi
just talking
stuff.
about The Fugitive?
You know,
It's this movie just basically The Fugitive with Spielberg directing, and it kind of really is similar in plot. It's
doesn't have any Tommy
bizarre.
Lee Jones though, so it's already nowhere near as good.
No, true. This movie, this is the thing I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about the Mount Rushmore, which is like your 4 movies of a director. Now, Minority Report, I will not place on Spielberg's Mount Rushmore.
No.
Okay. I am going to be very controversial, and I know a lot of people will disagree because everyone's got their own Spielberg memories because his work is so damn good. And I know I'm going to anger you by excluding one, but Spielberg's Mount Rushmore for me goes Schindler's List, E.T.,
Mm-hmm.
Saving Private Ryan, and Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Right. Okay.
Which one did I irk you with by leaving it off?
Jaws.
I knew it was going to be Jaws.
Yeah, I would rather swap out Shaving Ryan's Privates and then put Jaws in there.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I'm just looking at it a window of how I saw them when I first saw them.
You could do, because, your personal influences are based around not only the movies that you see, but also how you're affected by the people around you and the time period at which it's all set. But for me, all of Steven Spielberg's better stuff was back in the 80s. So,
yeah, that's fair. I got two 80s ones in there, so no Jurassic Park on there either. That would piss people off.
Yeah.
But Minority Report, yes. Back when Spielberg kind of had that fascination with that bleach bypass look in his movies, that is it Jamush Kaminsky or I don't know, I've said his name wrong. I do apologise if he listens, but I'm sure he's got better things to do. I always remember him as he kind of did all of these movies, I think since Schindler's List. I think that was the first one he did with them. And all of Spielberg's movies had that cinematography look. And then that cinematographer went and directed a movie called Lost Souls, which was a horror starring Winona Ryder and Ben Chaplin. And I think the real horror was that Ben Chaplin was in a Hollywood movie. It kind of had this bleached film look that I'm not really a big fan of. I think it got used way too much.
It was just the style at the time.
It was, and I think the first time I ever saw that properly might have been in Three Kings, and it works for Three Kings. I really did enjoy that movie, which you probably haven't seen.
No, I know what you mean. No, you're in the desert. It's bright. It's oppressive. Everything is going to get kind of bleached out because your eyes would be squinted. But if it's in the middle of a city at night, then why does it need to have that kind of look going on?
True. I mean, it's not going to take away from the fact that I think Minority Report is a very good movie. I don't think it's a classic. I think it's a very good movie. And it's amazing when watching the film again this week how distracted I was by how many Nokias appear in this movie.
Oh, yes, because the future was belonging to Nokia right up until about 2006.
Oh, yeah.
No, 2007, I think it was when the iPhone came out.
Oh, yeah. You could have a drinking game for this movie for how many Nokias and Lexus appear in this movie. There are a lot of them. Well, it's funny because this was written by Philip K. Dick, who obviously is one of the most celebrated science fiction writers of all time. It was kind of funny really reading up that Minority Report was originally supposed to be developed as a Total Recall sequel, which is quite funny when you realise that Colin Farrell is in this movie.
Yeah.
Who was in the Total Recall, would you call it a reboot?
No,
reimagining?
It was a remake.
A half-hearted arsed attempt. Hey, Total Recall, the remake with Colin Farrell, I thought was okay.
Well, no, I'm questioning it because I think the Total Recall with Colin Farrell was closer to the story than the one with Arnold Schwarzenegger was.
Yeah.
From what I gather. Okay. I've not read the actual story, so I can't tell you.
Okay. Can you remember, was it We Can Dream It For You Wholesale? That was the original novel, wasn't it?
Stupid title, but yeah. No, we can remember it for you.
Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Yeah, he wasn't really so strong in his titles, was he?
Well, whatever he was on was strong. Yeah. That's all I'm going to say. But this movie has a lot going for it, because looking at it in the kind of time capsule vacuum, this movie really did predict biometrics really early on. I mean, this stuff now is commonplace, with the retina scanning, the fingerprint scanning and all stuff like that. But back then you were like, oh, no, that's a nifty little science fiction thing. And now you're like, oh, shit, that's not actually far-fetched anymore.
No,
No.
and there was a story recently. There was an ad. I can't remember what platform it was on. It was a game or a TV show or something, but they were basically saying, no, if there's an ad coming through, most people will kind of just look away on the phone and do whatever, but this thing would actually track your eyes to make sure you were watching the ad, otherwise the ad wouldn't play. And there was a big deal about it recently, and I can't remember what platform it was on.
You see, that's just scary to me.
Yeah, it is.
And it's scary. It's kind of a scary world that we live in. I mean, this whole thing with pre-crime in this movie, where they're able to kind of predict crimes before they happen. Suddenly, in this world now, that doesn't feel too far-fetched.
No.
It's scary how in 10 years' time, everything that we're kind of seeing now as a major advancement, I think is going to be so intrusive.
Well, we're already sliding more and more into a fascist world government, but then again, that's just my opinion.
Well, I think it's the opinion of quite a few.
Yeah.
But the movie Minority Report, it's still a great movie. It's a fantastic piece of work. Brilliant little Peter Stormare cameo in there.
Mm-hmm.
This was the movie that I really discovered Samantha Morton,
Mm-hmm.
and she is incredible.
Yeah, she is.
Right, Samantha Morton is incredible in anything you put her in. She should be sitting on top of the English Lovies mountain now, but she basically chooses these really challenging, great roles. And that's what I love about Samantha Morton. I think she is so undervalued by Hollywood. As we mentioned earlier, the John Williams score, again. I wonder if he's going to show up again. Tom, yeah, okay. Tom does his bit. And he's a bit more edgy in this one, which is kind of nice. And the great thing about it is I changed my sound system in my screening room, as I call it, which is what I call my bedroom when I'm not sleeping in it. And the sound is beautiful on this movie. Oh, it is incredible. My neighbours don't think so, but I do. So, yes, it's great. If you've got DTS, this thing would just shake your house to pieces, I think. Minority Report is 20 years old this week. You should check it out.
Okay, so what do we have next?
Okay, a bit of change of pace here. We're going to go back to 2009. And we're going to have a bit of comedy, Steve. Because in 2009, this week, Bruno was released.
I thought you said we were having comedy.
Oh, come on.
Oh, now before I saw it at the cinema. I sat there for however long it was, about an hour and a half or whatever. And was just thoroughly just nonplussed by the whole thing. It was basically Borat, but with a gay character. And the only part that I actually laughed was when the penis kind of span around a few times.
Oh, the helicopter.
The helicopter, and then the end of it kind of opened up and said, Bruno! That was so unexpected.
I've got to admit, that gets me.
Yeah. Only part of it that I laughed at. Only part of it.
You mean you didn't laugh when he went camping with the rednecks in the outback?
No.
Oh my God.
No.
That's still one of my favourite funny scenes to this day, apart from the Harrison Ford cameo.
No, because it's just way too easy just to get idiots and make fun of them. You're not tricking anybody. They're already morons, so you're just kind of just showing them up to be morons.
Well, I mean, this was his freshest character from Ali G in the USI.
Aye.
Yeah. And this was kind of his kind of least popular character. So, they were trying something new. And then obviously after this, he went and did like The Dictator or The Brothers Grimsby. So he was doing more narrative type stuff. The Dictator was also directed by Larry Charles, who directed this.
I did really think that The Brothers Grimsby, though, was hilarious. I will give him that.
Okay. Yeah. See, there you go. And obviously, he was doing this in between all of his stints on Madagascar.
Yeah.
Larry Charles is really good with comedy. I mean, this is a guy who, he basically put Seinfeld out there. He also put Curb Your Enthusiasm out there. And the one thing about Bruno, I mean, it does have the highest opening gross for a film with an openly gay character. Although, I guess we can't exactly say Sacha Baron Cohen is gay.
No, we can't
But
say
the
that.
character is.
Because
But then
we don't
again,
talk about Bruno. No. We
Oh,
don't talk
Jesus
about Bruno.
Steve, before this show signs off today, let me tell you that I hate you. But this film did actually knock The Birdcage off that honour. And The Birdcage is a great movie.
Mm.
This was also the debut producing credit for a person named Jonah Hill.
Oh, wow. I didn't even realise he had producer credits at this stage.
Yeah, well, he was still young. I mean, Superbad only came out like 2 years before, and he was so young in that movie. So, he was kind of starting early and getting the producing credit, and this was his first one. I'll go online. I mean, the Harrison Ford cameo is great in this, and he was in on the joke. I think he was the only person in the entire movie who was in on the joke. And I think Sacha is brilliant in this role. There's things about this, and it is to play on, the uncomfortableness of an openly gay, really out there character around people like rednecks. I think when he goes to the swingers party is just so ridiculously out there, and she's whipping him, and he ends up jumping out of the window.
Yeah.
It makes me laugh. It makes me laugh because I do like Sacha Baron Cohen stuff. I would honestly say that Ali G in The House, I think, is the weakest of his comedy characters in a movie. I mean, it's funny, but I would prefer this over that.
Yes, so would I, but
Aye?
I just think that this is, particularly this one, less so kind of Borat, particularly the recent one when he got like Rudy Giuliani. That was properly going after a target and manipulating what it was that target had. This time around, it's just kind of like you have an openly gay character in the middle of a bunch of rednecks, like you say. That doesn't really take an awful lot to bring out people's prejudices. It really doesn't. It's shooting fish in a barrel, really. Okay, you're openly gay. Where are you going to go? You're going to go to the one place in America where gay people aren't readily accepted and just film reactions. Come on, you know exactly what's going to happen.
Oh, exactly. And it's all in the name of comedy, and I think Sacha Baron Cohen is a genius in that respect. And he is fearless, and I think this is the movie where, I guess, kind of apart from Borat 2, that he's probably got in the most trouble. I mean, for one, he got ejected for gate crashing. Was it a Victoria's Secret fashion show or something along that line? The other one was with, is his name Rand Paul, politician?
Yeah.
When interviewing him, and apparently the bodyguards had to rush him out of the state as soon as that was finished because there was threats on their life. But
he's got into some hell of some big trouble. Like there was one, I think it was in the first Borat movie where I think it was the scene where he was singing the national anthem or something. No, that was it. No. He was dressed up as like a redneck and he was on a stage and he was singing something, and then they whisked him back to the van, and then he's inside the van and you could just hear the van just being attacked and pelted, then there's proper like pandemonium going on in the van going, no, we need to move, we need to get out of here, things are starting to turn ugly, blah 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 blah. So I do have full respect for him for going into these situations and showing what prejudices people have. I just think that this was just like the weakest. This was fish in a barrel territory for him.
It definitely wasn't scared of letting it all hang out in this movie. That's what I will say.
No, it was not. No.
But yes, Bruno, I am going to say, for a movie that sets out to be offensive, it is kind of inoffensive to laugh at it. And I think kind of looking at it in a vacuum now of attitudes in 2009 compared to what they are right now, this might be the last daring comedy that was ever kind of pushed out.
Yeah.
And I recommend it. I recommend it as it's not an amazing movie. It's not a movie that's going to, sit on the pedestal of great comedy movies. But, it easily passes the time and you'll have fun with it.
And before we give up this particular ghost and move on, there is one little wrinkle that we haven't brought up, is that when it was released here in the UK, there were two separate versions of the film doing the rounds at the same time. There was a 15 rated version, and then there was an 18 rated version.
Yes.
And the 15 rated, obviously, that had some of the more extreme stuff cut out. And I went to see the 18 rated with a few friends from work. No idea what the difference is, because that's pretty much the only time that I saw it. So
I think it was the unrated version that I saw.
yeah.
Yes. Well, that's a nice, interesting tidbit. You can search out either version of it if you want to watch it with Grandma. Go for the 18 version.
Just gets to the twirling penis. Oh yes, that reminds me of your granddad. Yes.
Same colour too. So yeah. Now, with that in mind, we have a new segment for this week. And, well, I guess we've kind of got to go back to last week.
Yes. It'll all make sense. Trust us. Trust us on this.
Yes. Now, as for me, I'm kind of out of here. I've got to go and get a flight, but we're going to bring in our guest that we recorded the other day to talk about some of the movies that were released in the month of June. Okay, so here at Poddywood, we're always looking to bring something new to the show. Sometimes they work, like Poddywood After Dark, which we haven't done in probably about nearly a year. But it was fun while it lasted.
Yeah, it was fun while it lasted.
Yes, just because you want to hear us say. So you can always source them out. There are a couple out there online. But this week, I thought, you know what? Let's just do something new. We talk about loads of older movies. We talk about the anniversaries. We do the watch-alongs of admittedly terrible movies, but we don't really focus on a lot of the movies that are kind of coming out now. While I was on Facebook, I've noticed over the course of the last couple of months, there's this amazing New York comedian by the name of Jonas Barnes, and he does these kind of online Facebook reviews of these movies that were actually really funny. So I thought, you know what? I listened to his podcast, which is Another Goddamn Horror Podcast, and you've got to seek it out. It is fantastic, especially if you're a horror fan or a movie fan, unlike Steve. So,
hey, no, I love movies.
I just don't watch them.
I just don't watch them. You're quite right.
Yes, the game conversions of them are brilliant. It doesn't work the other way around, but they are brilliant. So I thought a fantastic segment that we could do once a month is to invite Jonas actually onto the show to talk about the movies that have been released theatrically and streaming, because he actually gets out and sees movies, unlike us. All the way from Brooklyn, joining us this week is Jonas Barnes. Jonas, how are you doing, buddy?
Hey, how's it going, you guys?
Yeah, we're doing well. Thank you very much for coming on and joining us all the way from what I'm guessing will be heat-oppressed New York around about this time of year.
Oh, it's disgusting right now. It feels like we feel like Louisiana for no reason. We don't have swamps, and we all of a sudden feel like we're in New Orleans. It's disgusting.
I came over a few years ago, and I just remember traveling around thinking, no, I'm staying on the subway. There's aircon down here. Screw it. I'm not going anywhere else.
That's how you know. That is how you know it's bad, because when somebody comes to New York and they're like, it is so gross outside that I'm going to stay on the subway. There's nobody in New York that has any situation where they're like, to hell with this, I'm going to stay on the subway. Absolutely not.
So, in talking about movies, because you'd never actually believe from the conversation if you've only just tuned into this segment, movies is what we talk about. And as me and Steve are kind of movie philistines and don't really get a chance to watch anything new until it's been out for probably a couple of years, we have decided to pull you in to tell us about the fantastic and terrible movies that are now available for everyone to go and watch. So I understand that you've been going to see quite a few films over the last month.
Yeah, I do. I actually have a program that I'm a part of in the U.S. called AMC A-List, which is actually pretty cool because it's a thing where you can get a subscription to go to AMC theaters, and you can see, I think it's like 3 movies a week or something like that if you want to. So you get to see a lot of movies. And I also do a horror podcast, so I pretty much, watch horror movies as much as I can. But I like to vary it up and, see as many different kinds of movies as I can. And some of them are not meant to be horror movies, but they are horrible. So that happens too.
It's funnily enough that
You
you
know.
should mention one of those subscription packages, because Andy used to have one of them, and then he saw a real horror film, and then cancelled it, didn't you, Andrew?
That was Rambo: Last Blood, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Yes.
Ooh.
We've
That
had this
one's
conversation
not even
so
worth going
many
to see
times.
for free.
No.
Rambo: Last Blood, an awful
Jeez.
movie.
There's no one who
That
likes
one-
that movie.
Dude, I have PTSD from that movie. Like, that movie was so bad. I went and saw that with my friend in Los Angeles. We went to the Universal City Walk and saw it. I've never heard an entire theater laugh at a movie that was not intended to be a comedy more than they did at that movie.
Yeah.
It was
I have
wild.
once.
Which one was it?
This is going way back. I went to see Mission to Mars, Brian De Palma's movie.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, it's not a great movie by
No.
any stretch of the imagination. And there's a scene where an astronaut is spinning, and then suddenly his arms and legs fly off, and everyone just burst out laughing. And it was supposed to be a really horrific scene.
No, that actually makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, I need to kind of defend Rambo: Last Blood just for one thing only. That movie was so aggressively bad throughout the whole film. And then you get that last 10 minutes or so where it's the underground Home Alone adult version, basically, where the entire theater was like, well, this is what we came here for. Why did you wait, 80 minutes to get us to here? This is what we wanted the whole time. So people were cheering and hooting and hollering when everything was happening, and like these dudes were getting taken out in all these crazy creative ways. But then at the very end, when he shoots the final dude with the arrow and then reaches in and, like, I guess spoiler alert, guys, if you've not seen this toilet movie, but when he reaches in and he grabs the dude's heart and rips it out and shows it to him before he dies, everybody just starts laughing hysterically because it was like,
It's so sanitized, isn't it?
it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous to a point where it was like, is this an Evil Dead movie? Like, what is happening? This is so satirically bad at what he did. And the fact that he said that he was going to do exactly that, like he Babe Ruth this pull, like, you know what I mean? Like, in the Indiana Jones movie, when he pulls the heart out, like, it looked better in that movie than it did in the Rambo one, and everybody was just like, oh man, like, you really built us up for that. That's what you gave us. And then he just walks off into the sunset all old and shit. It's just like, come on. Like,
It was like they filmed it for a much younger audience, and then when they all cut it together, they just went, "This has got no teeth. Screw it. Just put in some blood squibs from a little crappy After Effects package, and
Yes.
then just cut away. Don't actually see any blood going on." And it was just so safe and sanitized, but it was depressing as all hell.
I think the funniest thing was you'd never actually seen a Rambo movie before.
No, I
that.
hadn't.
So that was your introduction to Rambo.
oh no.
Doesn't make me want to go see one again.
I'll tell you what, I need to mention this though. The one that's prior to that, the one that's just called Rambo,
Oh, vicious.
that movie is insane. That movie is so good for many different reasons. But it's such a well done movie for dealing with what Rambo, is usually about, and like the areas of the world that he fights in and everything. And the amount of brutal realism in that movie was what really made people want to see Last Blood. And then Last Blood comes along and it's this just farcical piece of shit movie. It's just like, everybody's like, what happened here? And also, Sylvester Stallone is the one that wrote and directed both of those movies. So it's like, did you have a stroke between those movies? What did you do? Like, what happened? So yeah, I don't know how he came to the conclusion where he sat down and watched that after editing and was like, you know what, this is the movie. This is the one.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to put out there.
This is how I want to wrap up this decades-long love affair with this character that audiences have grown to really care about.
No, he'll be back.
Yeah.
He will.
He will.
There's got to be another Rambo on the horizon. He won't let that rest. It's like
Yeah.
Rocky, Rocky's never going to end. They're trying to do Creed now with just Michael B. Jordan, and everyone's just like, no, it's got to have Stallone in it somewhere.
Yeah, he's eventually just gonna wheel into the room like Professor X, but for Rocky. Just a straight up motorized wheelchair, just like walking in there, and he's gonna squirt out some line from one of the old movies, and they're gonna be like, "Yeah, Rocky's back." Like that's what they do.
Remember, it's not how hard you hit, it's how hard you can get hit. Of course, Uncle Rocky. Yeah. No, it's just
We get it. Here's your applesauce, Uncle Rocky. Have fun. I was chasing chickens in the other room. Okay, we know you were. Yes, you were.
I once got a robot for my best friend. Yeah. Okay. All right. I don't know why he's Jewish all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You know what?
It's a senile
Aged into
dementia.
a different nationality. That's all right.
Yeah. So, okay, what have you been watching recently? What's caught your eye?
Yeah, what goes first?
Okay, there's a lot of movies. There was a lot of movies this month. But first off, here I want to say this: no, none of these are children's films.
No.
That is definitely.
No.
There's a couple of them that are definitely not children's films. Like, did you actually get around to seeing The Sadness?
No, it's funny enough, that's one that I was actually planning on watching today, but my fiance saw the Red Band trailer of it and said, "You're watching that shit on your own."
Oh yeah, that one's. So here's the funny thing. A little side note, you guys. Sometimes somebody will reach out to me and they will be like, "I need a movie that's going to ruin me." And when they ask that question, I always have to follow it up and say, do you want a night ruiner, a week ruiner, or a much longer time ruiner? Because it depends on the movie. It depends on what they want. Because like sometimes maybe they're in like a depression funk and they were like, I need something that is just going to destroy me so that it's something that pops me out of this because I've now watched something that is deeper and darker and more depressing than the feeling I have right now, so I know that it can be worse. And I'm like, okay, fair. And then sometimes they just want one that's just like a super brutal horror movie, or like they want one that's just like very realistic. When they do that, I have different levels. So like if somebody wants a week ruiner, I'll go for Martyrs, which is French extreme horror,
Yeah.
And I'm like, that one will hurt your feelings. That one will make you think about it for at least a week. It's also one of those movies that when you hear it, you have a similar reaction to what you just had, where people are like, ooh, all right. But if they want like a much longer time ruiner, I'll be like, go watch Dear Zachary. Not a horror film, but horrifying. You know what I mean? I'm like, that one will get you for a long time. And every time I've done that to somebody where I'm like, yeah, go ahead and go watch Dear Zachary, I'll get a message from them about 2 hours later that like, you're the worst person that I've ever talked to. And I'm like, listen, you did this to yourself. I gave you a chance to back out, but you didn't, The Sadness is one that would fall into the day ruiner because it is insanely brutal. I actually spoke to the director of the movie over on another goddamn horror podcast, and he was basically tasked with making this movie. And they said, hey, we want you to do like a zombie movie or your idea of a zombie movie. And he was like, I don't want to make a zombie movie. So I'm going to make something like a zombie movie. And what he ended up making was The Sadness. And The Sadness is based in Taiwan. It is about an outbreak of a virus, similar to like, Resident Evil or something like that, like a T virus.
Yeah.
Similar to that. But what it turns people into is it turns them into these, not zombies, but like feral, violent, just depraved, zombie-ish type of, people. So what ends up happening is the story is pretty simple. In the beginning, it's just a guy and a girl. They wake up, spooning each other. Oh, it's nice and happy. And they have to both go to work. And then one of the dude shows up to pick up like his breakfast. And then all hell breaks loose. Somebody gets fryer oil like dumped on their head and their skin melts off. And he's like, what is going on? Like, what just happened? And then the rest of the movie is just balls to the wall. It's these two people that woke up in the morning trying to get back to each other. But while they're trying to do that, they're basically having to fight through Taiwan. It's after it's been overtaken by these, feral people, kind of like 28 Days Later or 28 Weeks Later.
Yeah.
Similar in tone to that. But here's the thing. The violence is ramped up to 1,000. So these people, when they get this mutation, they become very mean-spirited, along with the feral, aggressiveness. And what I mean by that is that they really take in what they're doing to other people. So they're getting they're getting their rocks off to doing these things. So it comes across a lot more depraved than just, like Dawn of the Dead or something like that, where it's just like a zombie eats a person, where it's just like, oh yeah, that's what I'm expecting from a zombie movie. This one, no, they'll break bones before they do it. They'll put actual pain to these people before they do it. And so the tone of the movie is very dark. It's very violent. It's very bloody. So, from a filmmaker standpoint, if you watched it, you'd be impressed at the effects of what they did. Because it's 99.9% practical effects.
Yes.
When we were talking to the director, he goes, I don't like CGI. He's like, there's a couple of times that were sneakily put in there, but for the most part, this is an all practical effects movie. But yeah, the amount of blood in the movie is insane. I've seen some very, very bloody movies. This one takes the cake. This one it's through the roof. But the pacing of the movie is good. The way that all the scenes are put together is done very well. The storyline of it actually is pretty cool, because by the end of it, you figure out why these people are the way that they are, and it actually makes scientific sense, which was actually a cool little twist to it. It wasn't just a thing where it's a monkey bit somebody and now everybody's diseased, people think COVID is. It's nothing like that. It's absolutely nothing like that. But it's definitely one that is so violent that it will definitely screw up your night. By the end of the night, you're like, okay, I need to spoon something while I sleep, or I'm going to have weird nightmares. It's definitely one of those.
So you'd say kind of a more PG version of this movie would be in the realm of In the Mouth of Madness or The Crazies.
Yeah. Similar to The Crazies, yeah. The Crazies would be a toned down version of this, and The Crazies is pretty violent.
Yeah.
But this is The Crazies turned up to 1,000. But I will tell you this, the acting in it is incredible. The effects are incredible. The pacing is great. It's a breakneck pace after the first 15 minutes. First 15 minutes happens, and then the rest of the movie is just fast. Fast breakneck happening like crazy. So it's good in that sense. The only downside of the movie at all is the ending is kind of abrupt. And I think it was just because they just kind of didn't know how to end it. It was one of those movies where it was all right, we have all this carnage. We've done all these things. We've explained the story. And now, I don't know what to do. So it's kind of one of those endings where it's just okay, fair enough. But you don't get a whole shitload of closure out of it. You're just all right, whatever. But the ride to get there is very entertaining. It's definitely one of those ones you have to sleep on it afterwards, because you've seen a lot of violence. Just a lot. So you do have to kind of sleep on it. But it's not hyper realistic violence like Martyrs, which is that's why Martyrs will ruin your week as opposed to just ruining your night. So it's a fantastic movie though. It's on Shudder. Absolutely see it if you're into zombie movies, especially if you're into Asian horror. It's a fantastic version of Asian horror. So it's fully recommend on that one.
Yeah, it's when you were discussing it, the movie that instantly kind of jumped to my mind was a 2007 movie called The Signal. Did you ever see that movie?
Yeah, that's great.
It was an independent movie, and it was really great. And it was basically people were getting, I believe, basically signals from their TV sets or whatever that was basically turning them into homicidal maniacs.
Yeah.
But to kind of prepare yourselves, everyone, I'd recommend watching the Red Band trailer on YouTube. And if you can get through that, then you could probably stand the movie.
I will say this about most trailers. Most trailers, they either give away too much or they don't give you a good idea of what you're actually in for in the movie. The Red Band trailer for this movie, if it's tonally perfect as far as what the rest of the movie is. So if you like that Red Band trailer, you're going to love the movie, like straight up.
There you go. And by the way, Steve, that is certified fresh for
Oh, is
what's
it?
in the box. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I get the feeling I would be watching that one by myself.
1,000%.
Yeah. Yeah, my other half, she's training to be a nurse, so she's going to be seeing all kinds of, stuff and blood and bits and whatnot. But no, I think this one might just be, I think by the sounds of it, actually, because I'm not a big gore freak, really. I don't mind horror, but I kind of prefer, like, the kind of, like, the creeping dread that kind of seeps under your skin, as opposed to just the out-and-out splatterfests, really.
Yeah, the psychological.
Yeah. Yeah, I prefer something which just makes you lie in bed at night, just looking in the shadows of the room. That I prefer that kind of horror to just like, oh, people getting ripped apart and skin pulled off and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm actually hoping that one doesn't come out, because I think that one might be a little bit too much even for me.
I mean, there's a lot of skin getting pulled off in this one. So
Yeah.
if you're not into that, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. It's the director's great though, by the way. This is also his first movie, which is insane.
It's his debut. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's great. And that's available on Shudder.
Yeah, that one's on Shudder right now for free. I mean, for free as long as you subscribe to Shudder.
Okay. What have we got next?
So the ones that you said, let's talk about Watcher really quick.
Yes.
Because that one, I want to talk about that one because, obviously you've seen me on Facebook. So on Facebook, a lot of the stuff I do is, eviscerating a movie.
That's what we pay
Watcher,
for.
Right. Watcher. So that's why we're getting the ones that I really liked out of the way first.
Yeah.
We're gonna go ahead and ease it in. This is just the tip part of the movie breakdowns. Don't worry, we'll be balls deep later. Right now, just the tip. So we'll talk about Watcher. So I work with IFC Midnight a lot, and I see a lot of their movies ahead of time. And I had gotten a screener notification for Watcher, and I had gotten it at the same time that I got screeners for a movie called Hatching, which is wild body horror. Very good movie though. And also The Innocents. So I had gotten it at the same time as I got those. I ended up seeing Hatching and The Innocents, and I forgot to see Watcher before the screener expired. So I waited until it came out in theaters. So I went and saw it first night. Didn't quite know what to expect, but I was into it based off of just the idea of it and the cast, which the cast is fantastic. But I'll tell you this, as far as when I actually sat down and watched it, and like at first I thought it was slow, and I was like kind of worried that it was going to be one of those movies that was a little too slow, didn't have a good enough payoff, that type of thing. But I also, the more I watched it, I was like, okay, this is giving me like a Hitchcock vibe. So I was okay with the slowness, I was like, all right, if this is going Hitchcock route, then I'm okay with that,
Yeah, I'm just having a look at the description of it on IMDb. It does sound a lot like something like Rear Window, doesn't it?
It definitely has some flavors of that. I would say. Would you agree?
I would agree. I mean, I went into it. I remember you recommended it to me. I didn't watch any trailers of it. I basically put my projector screen on at night, got in bed, had it on the big screen watching it, and I was so engrossed. I genuinely was. And I know you kind of mentioned it had a bit of a Hitchcockian vibe, and I thought, okay, that's going to be cool. But I was just totally into it within about 15 minutes.
Yeah, it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long to hook you. It hooks you in pretty quick. So the thing about this movie is that when I say the Hitchcockian vibe, like it also does some cool Hitchcockian things with the story. So like there's some red herrings here and there. Like it lets you know just enough about the characters to get you invested, but also doesn't let you know too much about the characters, so you don't have to. It doesn't overexpose the characters, I guess is the best way to put that.
Yeah.
And like the placing of events in this movie is perfect. So like it gives you just a little bit to look at here, just a little bit to look at there, kind of keeps your attention on two different things at one time, so that by the time that third act happens, it floors you in the best way. It's such a good third act to wrap up that whole story. I would say it's probably my top one. I would say it's easily my top 3 of this year so far, as far as like
Yes.
horrors and thrillers go. Easily my
Mhm.
top 3. But this is also like in the top 5 like psychological thrillers that I've seen in a decade. You know, it's such a well done movie.
I'm right there with you on that. I went in not knowing what to expect. I kind of had a feeling, okay, it's a girl who's just been spied on. That's what the kind of poster gives away, and it has an element of that. But what I really loved about it was the fact that you were second guessing it as you were going along.
Yeah.
Now, there was one scene, there was one point in this movie, and I don't want to give spoilers away because people should go and watch this, but there was one scene where I'm thinking, is this all in her head? Has she actually just really imagining all this is happening? You start to feel on the wall with it. And Micah Monroe is fucking amazing in this movie. She really is. I'd never really rated her before, but seeing her in this movie, she is incredible. That camera really loves her as well for this movie.
I was going to say, she's an incredible actress in general, but she picks really good horror and thriller properties.
Yeah.
Like, she really picks good projects when it comes to horrors and thrillers.
Yeah, and Bern Gorman is out of this world how he is used in this movie.
Mm.
My favorite scene, I think I mentioned this to you the other day after I'd watched it. I messaged you straight away just to tell you, oh my God, I've just had an experience watching this movie of how good a movie really is. And Bern Gorman, when he does speak in this movie, it's like the more terrifying Silent Bob treatment. So,
oh God, yeah.
when he's got, when he does have this one scene where he delivers this dialogue, it is the most tense and brilliantly performed scene on this Metro Rail train that I don't think I breathed while I was watching it. I was just pinned. It was so expertly directed by Chloe Okuno.
Yeah.
Chloe Okuno. Absolutely amazing. I couldn't praise this movie enough. It's probably the most rewarding film I've watched this year.
Yeah, it really is. And it's also, that's one of the things that's interesting about it when you talk about that train scene, that whole metro scene is so well filmed.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It just, everything about it, the shot choices, the lighting, the angles, like everything about it was good. Which is really funny because in the Sadness, there's a metro scene that also is partially in that Red Band trailer.
Yes.
That is beautiful in a different way. Like, it's one of those scenes where you're in a confined space, and the way that the angles are used, the way that the lighting is used, the way that the actual scenes are filmed is done perfectly for the type of scene that you're in. And when I talked to the director of The Sadness, when I talked to him, his name is Rob Jabaz. When I talked to him about that scene, it was kind of funny because he said that he directs in a completely different way than he's used to seeing. So he was like, when I walked into this train and I saw it, I was like, okay, well, I know what scene I want to film here. Like, I know exactly what it is that I want to actually film right here. And I don't want my actors to be stuck in makeup for, however long and have to go out and redo shots and like all this other stuff. He was like, so that's not what I'm going to do. He's like, I'm going to film 2 different things separately, and then we're going to combine them in post production. So basically what he did is he took all the scenes that were all like the carnage and stuff like that, and he filmed all that by itself. And then he filmed the other stuff that was like the aggressive action scenes and stuff like that, whereas people that were not like fully made up and there wasn't a whole lot of blood flying everywhere and stuff. He filmed those separately, and then he filmed just a couple of scenes that were a combination of the both. But for the most part, they were 2 completely different things that were filmed in the same space, and they were all combined post-production. Wow. He was like, I wanted to do that because if I don't do that and we screw up on a take or something like that, then I have to have people come back in and redo makeup and redo all these things. And like, he was like, it just would have been too aggressive for the cast. He was like, so instead, I'm just looking at this whole scoping scene and being like, okay, I've got these 2 different pieces, and they don't have to bleed over too much, and it doesn't have to. He was making fun of the whole one-shot thing. He was like, you know how directors, he goes, you know how directors sometimes want to do that whole one take thing? He was like, whatever. He was like, if you want to jerk yourself off and do that, that's fine. He was like, he was like, but it's unrealistic. It's dumb. He was like, when it works, but most of the time it doesn't work. And also most of the time they're lying. He was like, it's just not a thing. He was like, so instead of doing that, yeah, he was like, I had to do this, and then you kind of Tetris it together. He was like, so it put a lot more pressure on me as the editor, but also at the same time, it was better for my actors and better for my cast and stuff like that. So when you look at that compared to Watcher, I think the way that was filmed, it was so tense, and it wasn't a long scene. Like it was a relatively short scene.
It just felt longer.
Yeah, it
because
really
of the
did.
tension of
It felt like it lasted a long time.
Out of probably all the films we'll talk about today, obviously there's some I haven't seen yet and probably will get round to by the time this airs. But The Watcher is just, it's very simplistic. It is a slow burner. So you do have to give it time. You have to let the story unfold and really get involved with it. But by the end, that very last shot, I think we both kind of discussed the very last shot and how perfect it is.
Absolutely perfect.
It's so rewarding. It really is.
Yeah, it's one of the best final scenes that I can think of, in such a long time. So Watcher is for sure one that you need to see. I know it's on video on demand now, so you can definitely find it just, streaming and stuff like that. And I mean, you have to rent it, which is, you should. Rent it, buy it, whatever. But it's incredible. So let's shift over to some of the other ones that you've seen. So Doctor Strange 2 in the Multiverse of Madness.
Have you seen the Multiverse of Madness yet, Steve?
No, it has just come out on Disney Plus, but I've completely fallen out of love with the MCU and superhero movies in general. And I know this is taking a different tack. You've obviously got Sam Raimi in, who's just like the master of the comedy horror genre from way back in his days doing Evil Dead, but it's just I'm done. I'm just done. Pretty much as soon as the final shot of Steve and Peggy dancing at the end of Endgame came around, yeah. I was just like, no, that's it. I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah, that's where you tapped out.
Yeah, I was done. It's like I don't want to spend a full-time job watching all of the new Marvel series coming out week in, week out, and then trying to work out how that ties into a new film, which seems to be coming out every other week. And I can't be doing with it anymore.
Okay, to be fair, we are 250 movies into the MCU at this point,
yeah.
So I mean, there's a lot of content to take in.
Yeah, way too much. I've got to admit, I've started to fall behind on the series as well. I only realised the other day, it's like, oh my god, there's 3 episodes of this Ms. Marvel to watch. And Moon Knight didn't exactly set my world on fire. I think I'm starting to get the superhero fatigue myself a little bit.
I mean, Amanda was watching Moon Knight, and I was digging Oscar Isaac's performance because he seemed to be one of the few. He seemed to be one of the few Americans that was doing actually a really good British accent and also using British slang.
Yes.
Because there was one scene in a cafe where he's just there going, oh, I feel like a bit of a knob. You don't hear that in US-led programming.
True.
You only expect something like that in something like Shameless, like the British Shameless. And
oh, yeah.
So it's just like, oh, no, this is nice. I like what he's doing in this, but I've just got no interest in watching the rest of the series.
I can't really blame you.
The only thing that I did get out of the whole new Doctor Strange thing was I did go and see No Way Home, but that was just to see what they were going to do with Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield and all the rest of it, because that was Hollywood's worst kept secret for ages.
They really let that one out. They really did
not.
They really let that secret go.
To the point where the denials just became comical.
Yeah.
And that kind of crossed over into Multiverse of Madness as well, and I don't think we're really withholding any spoilers here. I think everybody knows by now, especially with it being on Disney Plus. Everyone who wants to have seen it must have seen it. If you've not seen it by now, then you really didn't want to see it to begin with.
For sure.
So
yeah.
I don't think we're going to really rock your world and commit movie sin by discussing the spoilers here.
I mean, they
I
gave
feel like
one of them away in the trailer.
they did.
Yeah.
They did.
Yeah. Okay. Right. This is your last chance. If you're not interested, then just fast forward. I don't know, about 10 minutes, whatever. But they had Patrick Stewart's voice in the goddamn trailer.
For sure.
Yeah. And in the movie, they even have a little bit of the music from the X-Men animated series, just to let you know, oh, this is Professor X from the animated series, not the movies.
Dude, that was such a hand job of a move, though, where they were just like, oh yeah, we're gonna go ahead and throw in this little Easter egg in here, just a little music from the anime. Shut up, like, dude, that was such comic book nerd shit, where they were just like, oh yeah, we're gonna put this one in there. I hated that. I loved it because I got it, but also I hated the fact that they just thought they were just so cool to put that in the movie. Just, oh my God.
It goes right up there with that scene at the end of Ghostbusters Afterlife where the original cast just like walk in like it's the Star Wars holiday special.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so this is something I want to talk about with Doctor Strange 2. I thought it was a great movie as far as superhero movies go. As far as like Marvel movies go, I had a lot of fun with it. I also like the fact that it was Sam Raimi, because he is, like we were talking before, he's kind of like really, really, really good. Like his bread and butter is comedy horror. Like that's, that's what his main vein is. Like Drag Me to Hell, incredible. Like just, there's lots of things you could say about Raimi. Now, with this movie, it had his fingerprints all over it, which I personally dug. I thought it was great. Also, given what type of movie it is, though, it was also a mess. Like, it on purpose, though, kind of, I think. I think when I say a mess, it's because you are dealing with multiverses, so you are dealing with multiple storylines, you're dealing with multiple characters, you're dealing with multiple versions of multiple characters, you're dealing with all sorts of these different things. But the thing that I liked that Sam Raimi did is he added horror into it that was still PG-13 accessible horror. But if you pay attention to what's happening off screen that they're not showing you, it's brutal. Like, there's stuff that's happening in this movie that had the frame moved down 1 foot, it would have been a fully R-rated, like, straight-up horror movie. But there's, like, one of the coolest things about the movie is the villain, Scarlet Witch, Elizabeth Olsen. She does fantastic.
Yes. When she did WandaVision, she really broke out, and it was like, wow, this is, a really fully rounded character. But then, Multiverse of Madness comes out, and you're like, holy shit. She is fucking great in this movie.
She's got a bit of a weird makeup job going on, though, hasn't she? Or is that just me?
No, she does a little bit. At times.
Because I've seen stills, and she just looks weird. I think that's the only way that I can think of to describe it. You compare her there to how she was in Infinity War. It looks completely different. I don't know. The character's gone through everything that happened in WandaVision. Yeah, but it also seems to be looking, as far as like costume and everything's concerned, it's starting to look a bit forced. All the costumes that they had throughout the MCU, they look plausible.
Right.
They look like they were actually made and manufactured. Looking at all the stills and everything from this, it looks like they're just trying to go, this is a superhero outfit. It's kind of like what Game of Thrones did. It started out at the beginning, it was all wolf pelts and furs, and by the end of it, it was like, oh yes, this is all Gucci and Armani leather, yes.
Right. That, I could see that, actually. Now, the thing is with Elizabeth Olsen's part in this is that there's the WandaVision part of it, and there's the full-blown Scarlet Witch part of it. Yeah. So she's playing two characters really at one time, and she's also playing a villain that's interacting with her WandaVision character also. So you've basically got, a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing going on. I will say this, as Scarlet Witch, she is a formidable villain. Like,
yes.
If you're into superhero movies and you're kind of one of those people that hates it when the villain is not somebody who could plausibly kill the superhero, this movie is not that. Like, there's times where you for sure think that Scarlet Witch could take them all out. Like, easily, you know? And they did a good job of that. They did a good job of showing how powerful she actually is, which was really cool. But when Sam Raimi started to add the horror stuff into there, it got more fun for me because I'm such a horror junkie. But there were some people that didn't like it. Like, I love the fact that Undead Doctor Strange was in there. That was amazing. Like,
Yes.
that was cool as shit. Like, that was... And it was a good makeup job. Like, it was for sure, like, good undead makeup. But then when you look at it, you're like, that's just Evil Dead. Like, that's... You took the same makeup from Evil Dead, you shined it up a little bit for 2022, and that's what you did for Doctor Strange. Which is fine. Like, it's totally fine. But also, it was kind of a cop-out. You know? Like, it was kind of one of those ones where it's like, you could have done something other than what you've already done before. Like, you could have actually made that a little cooler looking. Overall, though, honestly, as far as, like, sequels go, especially, like, sequels to original properties, that's a damn good sequel.
Yeah, I'll admit. I'll say there was a lot of build-up with it, and this is the kind of problem with the Marvel movies now. The fandom build this image of what the movie should be leading up to its release. So the last couple of Marvel movies have suffered disappointment in that respect, because these fans really say, oh, it's going to have this in it, it's going to have that in it, and, you know, we're going to see this character show up and that character. Endgame was the same, because the fans were there saying, oh, Daredevil and the Punisher and everyone else is going to show up at the end. And it's like, no, they don't.
Yeah.
You know, but the fans got so rabid about it, and then they get pissed off because they've built themselves up. And it was the same with the Multiverse of Madness, to the point where it didn't hold any surprises when I went to see it.
No.
Because I'd heard so many people saying, oh, this is going to introduce the Fantastic Four, this is going to introduce the Illuminati, blah, blah, blah. And by the time I was watching it, I was like, to be honest, I'm amazed the fact that Scarlet Witch is the villain is the one thing that surprised me.
Well, yeah, they gave away so many things, and, like, the introduction of Fantastic Four, I think, is cool. John Krasinski, I don't know if he's exactly the one that I want in that part, but
John
the
Hamm,
introduction.
come on. It should have been
No,
John
I
Hamm.
like him.
Well,
No,
he's already got
yeah.
something that can stretch out quite a long length anyway, so...
There you go.
yeah.
We're talking about John's ham there.
Yes.
I
I actually
But,
did like, what's his name? Jon Griffith, or whoever played him in the...
Ian Griffith.
yeah.
I've actually got a soft spot for those movies. I've actually got a real soft spot for the Roger Corman one, but that's a different story altogether. But
Listen, the Roger Corman one, for anybody that has not seeked that movie out, I think it's on YouTube.
it is, yeah,
It is an absolute piece of shit, and it's great.
it's fantastic.
Yeah,
It is way better than it has any right to be.
yeah, absolutely.
And if you do watch that on YouTube, then seek out the documentary Doomed,
Yeah,
which was all about the making of that movie and the fact it never got released. It is a fantastic documentary on that.
yeah.
Side note there. But anyway, yes, getting back to Doctor Strange.
No, I agree with you on the soft spot for the other Fantastic Four movies,
Yeah.
though. It's like Michael Chiklis as the Thing was hilarious to me,
Yeah.
just because it's like, you're Vic Mackey, but you're made of rock. All right.
Yes.
And I really
Um,
did like the interplay between him and Chris Evans. I thought they were kind of bouncing off against each other quite well.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those movies were unfortunately bad, but like they were also kind of fun, and I have a feeling those are kind of going to be one of those sets of movies that as time passes they'll get more and more cult popularity. And I think they kind of deserve that for what they were, so I'm down for that. But the thing is about the Multiverse of Madness is the things that were introduced into it were interesting. So you have the introduction of the X-Men into the MCU, which I think is cool and long overdue. Like, you said, you've got that part. You've got the inclusion of Fantastic Four, which if they do it right is going to be great. The ending of Doctor Strange was good. It was a good ending. The stinger, though, at the end of the movie, after the credits, with Charlize Theron, not the Pizza Papa one. That one's just fun. But
Well, unless you're in the audience I was in who stayed for that.
Oh, yeah. Everybody in the audience stayed for this, and they were like, that was all it fucking was? Are you kidding me? It's like, yeah, well, it's a Sam Raimi movie, all right?
Yeah.
Let him
You
have
got
fun
Bruce
with
Campbell
that.
stuffed it
Right.
Money.
The best one, actually, the best one for that was, I think it was at the end of Homecoming, where you got Chris Evans as dressed up as Captain America doing the PSA, and he's just like, "Yep, you waited all this time for this." Oh dear.
Also, my favorite after credit scene for any of the Marvel movies though was definitely Deadpool. Just because Deadpool, he came out and he was in like a robe. He was like, "What are you doing? Why are you still here?" And he was just like
The Ferris Bueller ending.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think he even said, he goes, I mean, yeah, there's probably going to be another one, but I got nothing for you. Leave. He's just like,
Yeah.
get out of here. But yeah, Doctor Strange was good. It was good. The stinger was weird, but I'm looking forward to Charlize Theron being in the MCU. Man, people really hate the Eternals. They really didn't like that one. Whew.
I'm still trying to decipher at what point in the upcoming Marvel movies someone is going to say, "Excuse me, there's a gigantic fucking thing hanging out of the top of our planet."
Right. Yeah.
They seem to have forgotten.
We're
this
back
has
to John
happened.
Hamm again.
You can only have one John Hamm on Earth, because if you have two, it would throw the Earth's axis out and we would all die. Like, you just can't. Yeah, so Charlize Theron, I guess, coming into the Eternals timeline is kind of cool, because that's what it seems like that's going for, is it's going to have the Eternals, multiverse Eternals timeline go into the Doctor Strange one, and it's at this point it's an orgy that I don't think anybody can decipher, but we're gonna try. So it'll be fun. So yeah, that one I would say definitely, if you haven't seen that one, go see it on Disney Plus. It's worth watching. It's worth your time. Have you seen? Okay, so I'm gonna hit Top Gun really quick. Okay, Top Gun was a historical milestone in filmmaking.
Yep.
It was super nostalgic.
Mm-hmm.
It was not a good movie. And that's okay. Like, that movie I don't think was meant to be a good movie, because the storyline was fucking Star Wars. So, like...
Yeah, with a bit of Iron Eagle tapped on the end.
Exactly, yeah, it's all it was. I mean, the storyline was not even paper thin. There was really no story there. It was just a whole point to get everybody together to go on the ride again. But what they did with the filmmaking was incredible, with the cameras in the cockpit, and the actual flight scenes were amazing. Also, as a side note, stop putting Val Kilmer in movies. Like, yeah. I get that you want to do it for the nostalgic purposes, but like,
don't do it talk anymore.
Yeah, just like don't do it anymore. Like, use his likeness, give him the royalties or whatever, but don't put him in the movies anymore. It's not even just that it's sad. Like, you can tell that he's not comfortable. Like, nothing about it is good. So when he showed up in the movie, it was just unnecessary. Like, so unnecessary.
Yeah, and it was so uncomfortable with him, like, delivering what is now going to be his last ever spoken lines in a movie.
Well, he didn't even speak them.
No, he did.
He did.
It was through like an AI or something. That was like the big news about it, is that they basically had to use an AI to recreate his voice because he couldn't actually speak to deliver the lines in the film.
Well, to be honest, I can live with that, because that means his last kind of performance wasn't the Snowman.
No.
I applaud the fact that they had him in Top Gun Maverick just to kind of erase that as his lasting legacy.
I really like the idea behind the Snowman, but it was, yeah.
I know,
the premise
there's no walking in the air or anything.
No.
Yo, the Snowman was a great book, but I don't know how they could have misfired any more in that movie if they tried. That was one of the worst movies I've ever seen, and I would not wish that movie on my worst enemy. It was such a bad movie. But so the thing about Top Gun is that if you're into nostalgia and you like the original Top Gun, definitely see it. If it's still in theaters where you're at, see it in the theaters. Like, see it in a big screen.
See it in a Dolby theater.
Yeah. See it in a premium.
See it in 4DX.
That's where I saw it, and it's hilarious.
Yeah.
I saw it in 4DX, and I was there with my friend, and she was like, I probably should have brought a jacket. And I was like, no, it's like 98 degrees outside. You're going to be fine. We get in there, and then all of a sudden, all these fans turn on, and it's all this wind and shit. And then, like, we were in the middle of one, I don't remember what part it was in the movie. We were in the middle of it, and then all of a sudden, water, like, sprayed in our face, but it was done so out of left field that it was like a jump scare. It was just like, it was ridiculous.
Little did my friend David Zucker realize that Feel-O-Rama would actually be a real thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. 4DX is such an interesting format too, because like if you go into a 4DX movie and you've drank anything at all, you have to piss 8 times during that movie. It just happens because you're being shaken around in your seat so much, and your bladder's just like, oh, this is a great movie. But yeah, Top Gun Maverick is fine. Like, it's definitely go see it. It's not a good movie. Just go in understanding that there is no storyline at all. They didn't even write one. They just said, all right, planes, go get the bomb. Like, it's just, that's what it was.
I will admit, this is a movie that simply doesn't exist if Tom Cruise is not on screen in it, because he is on screen practically in every single scene.
Yeah.
So he's
and also,
kind of like Poochie then. Anytime Tom Cruise is on the screen, we want everyone to be going, where's Tom Cruise?
You know, side note, Tom Cruise's best part that he's ever played in any movie was playing Les Grossman in Tropic Thunder. I will die on that hill. I will die on that hill. That is the best part that he has ever played in anything.
I don't think anyone would disagree with that.
Better than Eyes Wide Shut, Jesus.
Oh my god. Yeah. Eyes Wide Shut's another one. So here's the other thing. The one of the funniest parts about Top Gun Maverick is that when he's working on the stealth plane, that's the fucking Aurora project. Like, that's a real thing that they've talked about in the US military as a quote unquote conspiracy theory. That's the fucking plane that they keep at Area 51. Like, that is the one. And they didn't even hide it in the movie. They were just like, it was such a middle finger to people that like actually are interested in Area 51. It was just them just going, ha ha ha, fuck you, we're putting it on the movie. Yeah. Like, it was hilarious though.
All you 12 guys who decided that you were going to raid the base last year. Ah!
That was amazing because they just turned it into a music festival when I got there. That was so good.
I would have loved to have seen Tom Cruise running alongside all of those guys, giving a full-on Leroy Jenkins towards Area 51.
Beautiful. It would have been beautiful. Okay, so yeah, that's Top Gun. So that one's wrapped up. Definitely go to see that. I mean, like, you know, if you're into Top Gun and the nostalgia of it, go to see it.
Yeah, I was watching a documentary on Prime just yesterday, and it was about all of the action movies of the 80s and 90s. And they started talking about Street Fighter, and apparently Stephen Lang was originally cast in that role. And then they switched it for Raul Julia, who was deemed as more marketable than Stephen Lang. But when I watch that movie, it's like, and I think we mentioned it on the watch along, it's like, it's the most baffling choice of casting in any movie I have ever seen. But for me, Andrew Brynarski just steals that entire movie for me. Zangief himself.
Yeah.
The greatest line. That line is the reason me and Steve are friends to this day.
Quick, change the channel!
I put on Facebook at that line, and he was the only person who picked up on it. It was like, yes, we can be friends.
Yeah.
What kind of a testament is it to Raul Julia's casting that was the most baffling casting, and it wasn't a fucking Belgian dude that was playing an American hero, an American military hero? Like, he can't. Jean-Claude Van Damme is what Jean-Claude Van Damme is, and an American he is not. He cannot pull off any other accent other than his accent. He can't do anything else.
No.
He just is not a guy that can do that. So you have Guile coming in here who's supposed to be like Mr. Marines, and he's a Belgian dude. Like, there's no way. Just, all right. Like, I guess that's just what we're doing in this movie, which is all right. Okay. His best part, by the way, as far as just like not giving a fuck whatsoever, as far as Jean-Claude Van Damme parts go, is when he was in The Expendables. and he was playing the
Yes.
bad guy. In Expendables 2, wasn't it? I think it was
Yeah,
part 2.
yeah, part
Yeah,
2.
second one.
Yeah.
What was the best about that is that either the script writers, okay, so I don't know if it was Sylvester Stallone that wrote that, but whoever it is that wrote it either did not give even a single fuck, or they gave too many. Because his name was Vallon, and it was spelled villain. They didn't even try. They did not even try. It was spelled villain, and they were just like, okay, we can't call him villain because we'd be assholes if we did that. So we're going to call him Vallon. Like, okay.
I am Jean-Michel Bad Guy. Yes.
Yes. Come on. This is the asshole who named one of his characters Marion Cobretti. There's no thought in these characters at all. It's just like, I need a name. What kind of name is good for a title?
All right, so have you seen The Northman?
I haven't, but I have it right here ready to watch.
Okay, so The Northman is another one. This is interesting because the first month that you guys have me on this, the majority of the movies that I watched this month were really good. Okay? So The Northman is great. You gotta like Robert Eggers. You gotta like his stuff, though, because it definitely is still his style.
Mm-hmm.
It's a long movie. It's got his type of filming. It's got his type of pacing, although this one's not quite as slow as his others. This one is also a lot more brutal than you would expect, though. Like, it's right up there as far as the brutality goes. But acting across the board is fantastic. And storyline's great. Like, it's a very, very good movie. It has a very A24 feel, even though I think it's a neon film. I think
it is neon, yeah.
So yeah, that one I'm not going to get into too much because that one is also kind of one's that that one's the one that I think people should really watch and experience for the first time, as much as they can. Because there's a lot of really cool stuff going on in there. And by the way, Nicole Kidman, for the time that she's in that movie, knocks out of the park. This is one of her best parts that she's done in years. So she's fantastic in it.
There's also a Skarsgård, isn't there?
Yes.
It's the law now. If you do any kind of film that is set in any part of Scandinavia, then it has to have a Skarsgård. Doesn't matter which one. Yeah.
Has to have one. At least one.
Bill actually went to see The Northman. And I was like, okay, yeah, definitely. I've seen all the trailers for it. I'm really looking forward to seeing it. So, Bill, let me know how it is. And apparently, Bill hated it.
That's also interesting. Some people really did hate that movie. I kind of understand why. I have a very love-hate relationship with Robert Eggers. Like, I hated The Lighthouse. But it had...
that was the Robert Pattinson
Willem Dafoe movie. Yeah, and I had no problems with it as far as the acting goes. Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe knocked out of the park. They were fantastic. It was literally everything else about the movie. I didn't like the aspect ratio that he filmed it in, even though I understood the artistic choice. I didn't like the fact that they shoehorned in a mermaid with a giant gaping vagina for no reason. Like,
did it have teeth in it?
It did not. It did not. Okay. It had an outward pulsating vulva, though.
Like,
it was just all right. Like, and it wasn't even like, listen, I am totally fine anytime you want to throw that on screen until it just doesn't fit. But this movie is kind of like that in the sense that this part comes on where it's just like, did you really have to put that on there? Like, it's not even a prudish thing. It's just like that literally does not fit in the movie. And the ending to The Lighthouse was infuriating because of everything else that was happening in the rest of the movie. And then when the ending came along, I guess spoiler alert for anybody that hasn't seen The Lighthouse by now, it's a non-ending. Like, it just is one of those things where Robert Pattinson goes up to the top of the lighthouse, looks into the big beaming light, and credits. It's just like, all right. Like, there's no payoff whatsoever. The Northman is better as far as that stuff goes. Like, the stuff that's in there, all of it makes sense. It has an ending that makes sense. Like, so linear like that, it does make sense. I can see why people disliked it, though, because of the pacing. Mm-hmm. And also because it kind of jumps between a real world story and kind of a fantastical mystical story. so it doesn't really know what it is as far as that sense goes. But the ride is great. Like it's a fun watch. And like I said, it is quite brutal. So if you're looking for like a gritty, Norseman type of, Viking movie, like it's that 100% of the way.
Just mentioning there about A24. It takes a lot to kind of shock me in cinemas nowadays. But I saw a movie just recently called Pleasure.
Oh yeah.
The opening scene of that movie has a guy with an erect penis just like jerking it off in front of a girl who's basically playing a porn star.
So it's the Louis C.K. story then.
Yeah.
Basically.
Like,
but
except this movie has more pleasure in it than I'm sure most of his most of his issues had.
It's like, wow, this is the perfect movie to watch with mom.
Yeah. No, you could actually leave the room during pleasure. So fucking Louis. He broke all of our hearts. No, that movie's actually an interesting one. But yeah, so The Northman, it's a divisive movie. People either like it or they won't. I have a feeling most people will like it, and I think also like reviews kind of state that too. So now I'm going to go into one that's super obscure. It just came out on video on demand. It's a Spanish movie called The Passenger.
I've seen posters for this online.
It's awesome. It's really good. It's very fun. Like I said, it is a Spanish film, so you're talking like subtitles and stuff like that. It's got a little bit of an Invasion of the Body Snatchers thing going on. It's got a little bit of it's got a little sci-fi, a little bit of like a Brian Yuzna-esque body horror thing going on too.
Cool.
It's an interesting movie. It's a very interesting movie. The way that the director lays out this movie, it's about a couple of people that are going from one place in Spain to another. They pick up a car riding service that's not like Uber or anything like that. It's more like a long distance travel courier service. And the driver is like this misogynistic dude, but also he's like protective at the same time. And when the conflicts start to happen, you find out that he's actually a giant pussy. Like, he's not protective at all. He's actually just he's a baby. But the thing with the alien monster situation that's happening also has a social commentary when it comes to gender roles, in a grand sense of the way that gender roles are portrayed. But it does it in a very creative way. It's not like ham-fisted or anything like that, but it's what the antagonist does to female victims compared to what it does to male victims is it's clearly a thing that is, a commentary on those type of things. Mm-hmm. But again, it's not ham-fisted. It's just kind of one of those things that as you see it, you're like, oh, I see what they're saying. It's not like a thing that hammers you over the head. All practical effects. One of the things that's cool is the way that a lot of the scenes are filmed inside of the van kind of have like a Tales from the Crypt look to them.
Oh, cool.
Which was completely on purpose, because the director, he's a big fan of like Creepshow, Tales from the Crypt, a lot of anthology horrors and stuff like that, and also a fan of horror comic books. So you can see that translate really well to the film. Highly, highly, highly recommend seeking that out on video on demand, because I think it just came out, I want to say like a week ago, across most of the world.
I have been seeing, like I say, the posters of it and advertisements, so I think it has just hit over here as well.
Yeah, so that one's really cool. So as an aside, Mad God is a week ruiner.
Oh yeah, we kind of come in all the way back round to the beginning now, aren't we?
Yeah. I want to say that about Mad God real quick, because there's not much to say about Mad God, because it's all visual. So there's no script, there's no spoken anything. It's just entirely visual. And it's incredible. It's impressive. It is one of the best things I've visually seen in quite some time. But it is the stuff that's happening because it's done through stop motion. Mm-hmm. They can get away with a lot more, and he utilizes that to the full extent. So it's a impressively violent film, but it's also impressive in all other ways too. So yeah, Mad God for sure, see it, but definitely like watch it with somebody that you can spoon with afterwards because you'll need it.
Yeah, I would say that is Phil Tippett's movie. I've known
Yeah,
Phil for many years, and he has worked on this film for decades.
it's
Right, so
incredible.
it is an
Yeah.
incredible achievement. I haven't even managed to see it myself yet, but I remember when I was talking to him, getting advice in the industry when I was first breaking in, and he was working on it then. It's quite phenomenal that it's just took around 30 years since he was first conceiving it, and he ended up with students working on that movie as well.
Yeah, it's got a crazy lore behind it. So that's cool. I'm glad that you know him because as far as how impressive that movie is, I can't think of something that is more impressive as far as just pulling that movie off. I cannot think of anything that's more impressive visually, so my hat's off to him because the finished product is incredible. But yes, it will f you up for a while because it is dark, like dark, dark.
I always thought his most impressive feat was how many pairs of tits he got into Starship Troopers 2. but to be honest, and by the way, if you want more proof that IMDb is full of shit, like we prove every single week,
Yeah.
IMDb lists this movie as his first directed movie.
Really?
Yes.
But here, do you think that maybe they did that because he started working on it 30 years ago?
That could be a good point.
Could be.
But if you're basing it off completed movies, no, then Starship
Yeah.
Troopers 2 Hero at the Federation, starring none of the original cast but plenty of boobs.
Starship Troopers 2 had to have more titties in it because it knew how bad of a movie it was going to be compared to the first one. So,
Yes.
I know he's your friend, but
hey, it was a different
we all have
time in
black eyes.
2004. What's going to get this? What gets me in the seat? And then my other friend Ed Neumeyer directed the third one, so it's a very weird kind of synergy of friendship that just made the Starship Troopers series. And then Jay Oliva worked on the animated ones, so I guess it's kind of
That's
weird
hilarious.
that all
You're
of
just
my
missing
friends
out on
work
Paul
on Starship.
Verhoeven now, aren't you?
Well, funnily enough, one of my good friends is actually married to Casper Van Dien. So it kind of really all comes around. I am very much linked to.
Get Michael
Starship
Ironside
Troopers
on
series.
then. Get Michael Ironside on.
Oh, I would love to. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Michael Ironside's he's one of my favorite character actors.
Yeah, we can talk about all his performance work and everything. I'll just be there going, right, so, yeah, when you were voicing Sam Fisher in Splinter Cell Chaos Theory, yeah.
Okay, so Mad God's, like I said, it's fantastic visually. Just know that it is going to, it's definitely going to f you up some. So I will go
Speaking of
into,
which.
yeah, I will go into another one here that's very divisive that I'm pretty sure that you haven't seen yet. But maybe you did actually get around to watching it. But Crimes of the Future.
This is David Cronenberg's new movie, right?
It is, yeah.
I have not seen it yet, but it has, I think, just been released over here.
I heard that it had just gotten released over there. So it's okay. So first off, it's Cronenberg, so you know what you're walking into, right? You know that Cronenberg does what Cronenberg does. So you walk into this movie expecting it to be Cronenberg body horror, blah 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 blah. I need to point something out at the beginning on here because I kind of have a bone to pick with Cronenberg on this because I think he bullshitted us because he said that there was a bunch of walkouts during this movie during Cannes. He's lying. There's no way. There's no way that this movie had walkouts. There's no way at all. Like, because he's done some wild movies. Like, as far as his body horror goes, like, he's known for doing gross things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This movie did not have even close to enough stuff that would warrant walkouts. The only part whatsoever would be towards the third act. There's a dead body. It's not even a live person. It's a dead body. And it's a child on the table. And for like 2 seconds, it shows the kid's dick. That's the only part that I can think of where anybody would be like, nope, fuck it. It's enough. That's enough for me. It's got dead child dong on the screen. I gotta get out of here. Like, the rest of it is very tame for Cronenberg standards. It really is, because the movie is about a future where people have stopped getting infectious diseases and they've stopped feeling pain. So the world that they live in, there's certain things that are that they have to be assisted with because the pain receptors are gone. So what they do is they have surgeries, and they do like surgical procedures that are considered sexual at this point. So the surgical procedures that they do are not that gross. Like, it's nothing crazy. Like, it's a lot of it's just like, you know, cuts or an incision here and there, like a little bit of a skin pull. Like, there's nothing crazy as far as that stuff goes. There's a couple of times where like one of the people makes out with an open wound, which is kind of gross, but like it's done very close up, and like their mouth is all the way over the wound, so it's just the concept of them licking an open wound that's gross. You know what I mean? Like, it's not actually visually that disgusting. It kind of just looks like they're giving them a raspberry on their stomach, like it's their kid. It's very weird, you know. But
so
it's not
on a par with James Spader f***ing Rosanna Arquette in the leg, through a gash in her leg.
Okay,
is it worse?
That's it's not worse than that. That's the thing. It's not. There's one scene. So Viggo Mortensen's character is a person that is in this world that actually does still experience pain. So he's an anomaly. And he also generates new organs. So his body is very different from everybody else's. He still has pain. He still experiences these sensations. So him and his wife, the two main characters, are performance artists, because what they do is they perform surgeries to get rid of his new organs that he has.
Mm-hmm.
And they do it as a performance art. So in this movie, all the furniture is this weird H.R. Geiger looking stuff. So like, it's the Beyond version. It's the Beyond department of Bed Bath & Beyond. Like, straight up, that's what it is. Like he lays in a bed that looks like a giant uterus and cocoons him. So like, that's his bed. It's this thing that hangs from the ceiling that looks like a giant uterus, and he lays in it, and he has like tentacles attached to him that make sure that his body is regulated. And then when he eats, he has to sit in what is easily the worst part of the movie, the worst set piece in the entire movie, is this chair that looks like it's made of bones that like help him get food to go down. The reason it's such a shitty set piece is that it's very jangly. So like every time it moves, it's kind of like he looks like a puppet that has somebody working the strings that doesn't know how to work the strings. So it's very jarring. It's just like, it looks like the set piece got fucked up and they just kept it in the movie. It's kind of like what it looks like, you know? They were just like, we don't have time to fix this. We're out of money. Just let it be shitty. Like, just let that be a thing. But again, the actual gross parts of it, there's like one part where they're doing one of the live surgeries, and like you see guts, but you don't see any blood. Like, so it's not gross. Like, it's an interesting movie, the storyline of it, and like the whole concept of them not feeling pain, and you know, the concept of getting gratification from the surgical procedures, because pain is such a taboo thing to even think about now. And also there's a side story about people that consume plastic because their body has evolved to only take in synthetic materials. So it's also a social commentary about humans needing to stop eating bullshit food, or that's all their body's going to want.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe PETA was like a co-writer on this movie or something. I have no idea. But like, just it's it's one of those movies that, because it's Cronenberg, I do like what he did with the visuals, but I do hate that he kind of bamboozled everybody with the whole, like, so many people walked out of Cannes because this movie's so extreme. No, it fucking isn't at all. It's like, this is your rom-com, all right? Like, this is not at all, not even close to your grossest movie.
Doesn't have any exploding heads for a start.
No, there's not one exploding anything.
I would still say the one in all of David Cronenberg's movies, the one that got me was Dead Ringers.
Yeah.
And it's the scene where I'll basically say she takes a bite. That's all I'm going to say, because it's in the box and you will get to see it at some point.
I think you've seen Dead Ringers.
During this dream sequence where she's like separating them as twins. And that's the one thing that got me more than anything else in all of Cronenberg's movies. It's bizarre. It's Cronenberg. You can't just expect that. But
no,
I love
Cronenberg.
I wouldn't believe people walked out of his movie, because I think at his age now, and this cycle of his filmmaking credentials, I don't think he has that shock in him anymore.
No, and I think he tried to with this one, and it just was I think he tried to, and it just failed. Like, it was not shocking. Like, it wasn't like, for multiple angles. I will say this, Kristen Stewart's part in the movie, she is hyper fixated sexually on Viggo Mortensen's character, because she gets off on the fact that he can feel pain, and she kind of wants to experience it, like, vicariously through him.
Mm-hmm.
And the energy that she puts off on screen is, how do I put this lightly? I've never wanted to f*** Kristen Stewart more than I did in this movie. She does such a good job of putting out the fact that she's getting really horny off of him, that it makes you kind of be like, oh shit, like, I'm kind of into this now. Like, what just happened to me? Like, she does a very good job of doing the part that she's supposed to do.
If Cronenberg really wanted to dry her out, he should have shown her his performance in Nightbreed.
He could have just sat her down and be like, did you know that I was also in Jason X? Look at this.
I'd forgotten about that one.
I love Cronenberg's first movie, Shivers. That was
that was good. I like The Brood as well. I actually really enjoyed that. I don't know why, but I really enjoyed it.
No, it's a good movie. It's definitely a good movie. Can you think of a movie that Cronenberg directed that would surprise people?
I was kind of surprised by A Dangerous Method, because that was so different than anything Cronenberg had really done before.
Yeah.
But I'd say Existence, which was kind of unfortunately buried by The Matrix coming out around the same time.
That's the one that I would have said, is Existence.
Yeah.
That's the one I think if you said that Cronenberg directed that one, it would shock most people, because it feels like the least Cronenberg movie out of all of them. As a side note, his son is an incredible filmmaker.
Really?
Brandon Cronenberg. He has a movie that came out, I want to say 2 years ago, maybe at this point, called Possessor.
Oh my god, yes.
Yes.
That movie is wild, and it's so good.
Isn't there an unrated version of that's out as well, or an extended version of it?
Yeah, there's an unrated version of it, and it definitely doesn't add a lot, but what it adds is it definitely is why it's unrated.
Yeah, I think it's the unrated version of it I saw. But
yeah,
it's an amazing film. Obviously, if you're going to say for the shock value, I think Crash is the one that gets the most publicity, is the most shocking for Cronenberg, I guess.
Yeah, but now, if you want to watch a movie about people in cars, you can watch Titan or Titan or
yes,
Titania or whatever it is. I can't think of how to pronounce that one right now. But that one, that's your new car sex movie. That's the one.
Yeah, you'll never look at Lightning McQueen in the same way.
No.
You will not.
Oh my god.
Chowder.
Oh man.
Oh my God! No, I have a feeling that we're descending now into the arena of the unwell for what comes next. I have a feeling I
Oh,
know what it might be.
we have two movies left on my list right now.
Okay.
That are both the two that I hated the most out of this month by leaps and bounds. Okay. But as an aside, really quick, I just got to see The Black Phone. Go see that.
Yes, I've heard it's amazing.
Yeah. I quite
It's
like the sound
fantastic.
of that as well.
It is fantastic. Definitely go see that. First movie that I hated. I'm gonna end it on horror. So before I go to horror, I'm gonna hit it with this one: Jurassic World. Fuck that movie.
This is what I've been waiting
But
for.
it's got
Oh.
dinosaurs in it.
Okay. First off, this movie is basically the Fossilized and the Furious, and it is one of the worst movies. It is such an overblown piece of shit movie. It is so bad for so many reasons, and only one of them is Chris Pratt. Okay? I am so done with Chris Pratt being in movies. I am sick of his face. This movie specifically is so bad, and this is the most damning thing about it is that you fucking brought the original cast members from the first one back for this movie. You brought Sam Neill back for this? How dare you? Okay. Okay, tonally, it has no idea what it is. It has no idea. There's car chases in the middle of Italian alleyways with a velociraptor that's chasing people that are on dirt bikes. Like, why? Why are you having these car chases with dinosaurs? You have a 2.5 hour long movie that you could have easily cut 45 minutes out of, and those 45 minutes could have been fucking car chases that you had with a velociraptor in the middle of Italian alleyways, okay?
It's so they could sell a toy set
Oh,
with bikes and chasing velociraptors.
And that
sell
crossover
to
with the
10-year-olds.
Fast and the Furious franchise as well.
yo, this movie has so much Michael Bay stink on it. It is so bad. Like, Michael Bay has nothing to do with this movie, but you wouldn't know that by watching the movie. Everything explodes that shouldn't explode. There's things that blow up and have sparks fly out of them that have no electricity attached to them at all. Okay? I don't know how they sat down and watched the finished product of this movie and said, "This is good. We've made a good movie here." I don't know how. I don't know how they've done that. So that's the part before they even get to the island that has all the dinosaurs and has the new bad guy, who is the most paper thin bad guy. Like, he has no range whatsoever, no depth
I
whatsoever.
had no idea this movie even had a bad guy in it. I just thought that one of the big dinosaurs was the main big bad of it. This actually has a bad guy in it.
Yeah, it has a poacher. Okay, it's not even a poacher. It has a guy who employs poachers. Okay, so the actual storyline of the movie is the guy who's the big bad guy that owns the island that has all the dinosaurs on it and has this new corporation that he's using to create new dinosaurs that he can use to. It doesn't matter. He's a really bad guy. That's all. That's all it is. He's just a really
no.
bad biologist. Like,
It's not Campbell Scott, is it?
no, I don't think so.
Is it the guy who was in the original film?
No.
No.
So basically the guy owns the big island. That is also like the big corporate. What would you call him? He's the one that does a lot of the genetic engineering and stuff like that.
Oh, like the BD Wong guy.
Yeah.
Right. So BD Wong is in the movie. He is the main scientist in the movie. That's also the consultant. Okay.
Dr.
Jeff
Wu.
Goldblum is in the movie. He's the professor that is teaching the new workers about the dinosaurs and about their biology and about all these other things. So he's there as a professor. So you got BD Wong, who's the main scientist, who's being held there against his will, by the way. He doesn't want to be there. You got Jeff Goldblum, who is getting paid a lot of money to be there, but also completely understands that this guy is just a raging piece of shit. Then you've got Chris Pratt and you've got Bryce Dallas Howard, who have a little girl who is a clone of one of the original scientists that was at this big lab corporation, who hires poachers to steal Blue, who is the little blue velociraptor.
Uh-huh.
And Blue made a baby velociraptor by herself without any kind of a mate, so it was self-reproduction. And the poachers see that, so they steal the baby, and they also steal the clone girl. And there's a part in the trailer that is kind of funny, because after the little baby velociraptor thing gets stolen, Chris Pratt does his weird hand thing that he does to calm the dinosaurs down, because that's realistic. And he tells the mom velociraptor, "I promise that I will get her back." And then later on in the movie, he's talking to Jeff Goldblum, and Jeff Goldblum goes, "You made a promise to a velociraptor?" And he goes, "Yeah, what's wrong with that?" He goes, "All right, well, this is why we're all going to die." Which would have been a fitting ending to the movie if they would have just vaporized everything. So, the whole idea behind all this convoluted bullshit is that this big bad biology majored guy that is really not smart at all, he's just a big businessman, he's basically Elon Musk, he's there to study the self-generating velociraptor baby and the clone baby so that he can get these dinosaurs to self-regenerate till the end of time. And he's just going to have control over all the dinosaurs that are going to retake over the world. And if humans want to survive, they have to do his bidding. They don't even explain it. That's the biggest thing. They set up this big grand scheme of this techno overlord guy, and then they just don't explain what he wants to do once the dinosaurs take over the whole fucking world. At all. They just don't. He has no end game. He's just a big, mean techno guy. That's all. Just zero depth villain. All the original characters are wasted. BD Wong is in the movie for about 10 minutes, and he's very sad the whole time. Jeff Goldblum does his Jeff Goldblum shit, you know? Like, he says his lines. He's attractive for some weird reason. Like, just doing his Jeff Goldblum thing. Chris Pratt is the save the day guy, which really bums me out. Yeah, there's not much to the movie. It's long, takes way too long to get to anything. It's big, it's loud, it's dumb. It has no storyline whatsoever that really makes any sense. And to think that this is the way that they're going to end the franchise is really sad. Like, it's a bummer that this is going to be the end of Jurassic Park. But also, it should be the end of Jurassic Park.
Yeah.
So out of this and Jurassic Park 3, is this worse?
Exponentially.
Wow. Okay. 'Cause, I mean, for me, Jurassic World has never... I had this conversation with someone on Facebook the other day, funnily enough. And it was in regards to the whole Jurassic World franchise. And the fact is, no one is ever going to recapture what we caught with Jurassic Park.
No.
And that is why Jurassic World fails, because it is nothing new. Jurassic Park was new. It changed cinema in a way.
Yeah.
But with Jurassic World, and I've heard some major disappointing things, and maybe you can clarify because I have not seen it yet. Enough of the bad reviews kind of put me off spending the money to go and see it. But I hear that the much ballyhooed and released on YouTube for free beginning of the movie, where it's way back in the prehistoric era and stuff like that, isn't actually in the movie.
Nope, not in the movie.
So what they said was the first 8 to 10 minutes of the movie that they released on YouTube is not actually in the movie.
No, that'll be in the extended cut when it gets released on the Blu-ray.
Yes, the less disappointing cut.
Yeah.
They call it a prologue, and it's absolutely not in the movie whatsoever. It's not.
That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah. No, it's not in the movie. That part's out of the movie. The other thing, like, so the movie before this one, Fallen Kingdom, nobody thought that a Jurassic World movie could be worse than that one. And
Very true.
this one is not only worse, it is impressively worse. It's
Wow.
just, and when I say, like, I know I joked around when I called it the Fossilized and the Furious, but it's that. Like, there's people riding dirt bikes that jump onto planes. That physics, I guess. Um, there's also planes that get their entire wings and engines ripped off while they're over a body of water, but they still somehow make it to land. That's nope. That's not how that works. Um, there's multiple people that fall into a frozen lake and then they just get right out of that frozen lake like they didn't almost just freeze to death. Like they're not even shivering. They're just like, well, that was now I'm wet, and then they just walk away. Like, there's just so many things that are just jarringly inconsistent in the movie. On top of the fact that it's got a shitty storyline, on top of the fact that it's got a paper thin villain, on top of the fact that Sam Neill would rather be in literally anything else. Like he sleepwalks through this movie so bad. Like you can tell he doesn't give a shit. Like he's actually probably sad that they did this to his movie. And yeah, you can tell he doesn't want to be there. You remember the giant pile of dinosaur shit that was in the first one?
Oh yes.
Okay, so that is this movie. That's what this is. It's just that's what they did. They brought it back to the beginning. They were like, "Remember that big giant pile of shit? Well, we made it." So that's what they've done.
There must be a meme out there of the poster of Jurassic World Dominion, and then it instantly, at the bottom of it, is Jeff Goldblum there.
There has to be.
And if there isn't, create it and credit us.
Okay, so
Last one.
the
Yeah.
final movie,
What can be worse than Jurassic World Dominion this month?
Men.
Jeez. Men. Oh my. I've seen some trailers of this and I was quite confused.
Okay, here's the problem with this movie. I wanted to like this movie a lot, actually, because I'm a big A24 fan. I love Alex Garland, actually.
Yeah.
As a filmmaker, I think he's fantastic. Jessie Buckley, who is the main woman in the movie, she's fantastic, and she's good in this movie too. She's absolutely fantastic. And then Rory Kinnear, who is the other main guy, also fantastic, and he does good in the movie. Like, so the main gist of this movie, just so everybody knows, is that Jessie Buckley's character Harper has a traumatic thing happen where her husband commits suicide, and to deal with her grief, she decides to go to a little town out in the countryside to, unwind, deal with her grief, etc. And when she gets there, it is full of these men that all have different traits of toxic masculinity. Now, before I continue on this, I need to make it very clear. The fact that toxic masculinity is essentially the bad guy in this movie is not what's wrong with it. That actually is fine. Like, if you took that concept and you took the parts of toxic masculinity that they talk about as being these bad things, and you use those as story arcs, whether it's spousal abuse, whether it's sexual assault, whether it's, like polarizing gender roles, whether it's, temperaments. And like, if you used all these things as story arcs, they would work just fine. Okay. They totally would. And you could actually use it as a good story to talk about her grief and her trauma that she has attached to the most important male in her life, which was her husband killing himself in front of her, essentially. So you could totally do that. The problem is that they took that concept and they beat it to absolute death. And they did it over and over and over and over again to the point where you don't know who this movie is even marketed towards. Because if you're marketing it towards people that know that all that stuff is bad, that know that you don't abuse women, that know that you don't scream in women's faces, that know that you don't rape women, if you're marketing it towards those people, they're going, yeah, no shit. Like, that's, there's There's no aha moment. There's just like, yeah, no shit, it's bad. Okay, move on, you know? So if you're marketing towards them, doesn't work. If you're marketing towards people that are like trolls and people that exhibit these traits, you're sure the fuck not going to change their mind. They're going to be like, yeah, he's the good guy. Like, it's not, you know what I mean? Like, there's nothing that's, so it's not towards them. Here's where the biggest problem is. Rory Kinnear plays every single man in this movie.
Yeah.
Okay? Which is an interesting concept. Except for the fact that it's only for the audience. So what I mean is that Jessie Buckley is interacting with all of these Rory Kinnears as if they're completely different people that don't have Rory Kinnear's face. So that's
Right.
not, she doesn't see any of that. That's just for the audience, which makes it really fucking stupid. It makes it so dumb. Because as the audience, you're watching it going, oh, why is this guy's face on every single man in this entire movie? And then you look at Jessie Buckley, who is having zero reaction to the fact that this is the same face on every single man in this movie. So it's a complete disconnect. Because if you're doing it for the audience doesn't give a shit. Nobody in the theater gives a flying fuck that this same face is on every single person when you have a lead actress who has absolutely no reaction to it whatsoever. It's a complete emotional disconnect to the point where it's laughable. Okay? So it changes the tone of the movie completely. And then when you get to the third act, this is also something I need to point out, is that every man in this countryside village is white, and there's a reason that I'm mentioning this. I'm going to spoil the shit out of this movie just so everybody knows. So if you actually do want to see this movie, pause this right now, see it, get really pissed off, and then come back and listen to the rest of this. Okay? So you get to the third act. The third act is where the quote-unquote horror comes into play. And it's really gross. And it's trying to put something across as far as like a message, a social commentary message, and it doesn't work, and I'll tell you why. The third act shows one of the Rory Kinnear men giving birth to other Rory Kinnears through various parts of his body. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay. Through various parts of his body. One time his leg opens up and a new Rory Kinnear comes out of it. One time it very clearly is coming out of his dick hole. One time it's definitely coming out of his ass. One time it's definitely coming out of his chest. So it's like this one central male monster figure that is giving birth to other male monster figures, which is very clearly saying that toxic masculinity is a generational thing that keeps on getting passed from generation to generation to generation to generation, which is basically what the whole fucking movie does. Just tells you that the whole time, okay? So by the time that you get to this gross body horror thing that is very clearly trying to tell you that one shitty male continuously makes new shitty males, you're so exhausted by the message that you don't care about the extremely gross body horror that's happening right in front of you. And then, after he gives birth to multiples of these toxic men, you find out that the one that's responsible for it the whole time is actually her African-American fiance, who's been doing it the whole time.
Right.
Who's been the one that is responsible for all of these toxic white dudes. So you've got the one black character in the whole movie is the main villain who's responsible for the continuous rebirth of all these shitty white dudes.
Right.
Which makes no fucking sense whatsoever. And also kind of makes it weirdly racist. Like,
yeah. So basically, they're saying that black guys make white guys hate women. Is that basically what the movie's saying? Yeah.
That's the way it comes across. Even though I don't think that's intentional, that's the way it comes across.
That's okay. I'm just baffled by it.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's not your explanation of it. I have a feeling that I would walk away from this movie probably very angry that I'd watched it.
It's an infuriatingly bad movie, and it's none of the technical stuff. The effects are great. The look of the film is actually really, really good. So, like, Alex Garland directs the shit out of it. Like, he does a great job. Like, absolutely beautifully directed. As far as the writing goes, he also wrote the movie, and I have no idea what he was thinking.
This is the guy who wrote Dread, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for you gamer out there, Steve, he also wrote Devil May Cry.
He did.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is he's extremely talented. Like, he really is. He wrote 28 Days Later.
Yeah.
Which is great.
He wrote quite a lot of movies for Danny Boyle back in the day. I think he wrote... did he write the novel at the beach?
I don't know.
Yeah, he did.
I think
and
he
Sunshine
also wrote
as
Sunshine,
well.
yeah.
But and his directing stuff. I mean, I really love Ex Machina, and I love Annihilation as well. I thought they were brilliant movies.
Annihilation was great. Annihilation was great, and the actual effects of the body horror that's done at the end of it is actually very cool looking. It's awesome. Like, it's a hell of a lot more intense than the David Cronenberg movie, as far as the body horror goes. But the whole concept of that whole continuous rebirth thing at the end of it really fucked up the rest of the movie. But also that weird emotional disconnect. Like, why would you have Rory Kinnear's face be on all of these people just so the audience can see it, and have it not be a thing that she reacts to the whole time?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think Alex Garland had a really fucked up lockdown.
Yeah. You know,
I
you know
think
what,
he did.
You know, this actually reminds me of... You've seen Don't Be a Menace to South Central or Drinking Your Juice in the Hood?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's just that bit where just like they'll say something and then I think it's Keenan Ivory Wayans just comes in and just goes, Message!
Yeah,
it's like...
very much is that.
Yeah. Don't be naughty to women. You hearing? Yeah, we got that. Yeah.
I'll shoot this white dude out of my dick.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. Is like, as you're watching it too, it gets laughable. Because it's like, okay, cool, his thigh's gonna give birth now? That's awesome. Yep, right out of the dick hole that one was. Oh, look, there comes a guy out of his asshole. This is fun. All right, where's it gonna come from next? You know, like, it is one of those things that, like, also some, like, there, when we walked out of the movie, there was a couple that was right next to me. As soon as the credit hit, he breaks the dead silence in the room and goes, "What the f*** was that?" And then everybody just started laughing, just dying laughing. Because we were all like, you didn't get it either? Because I didn't. You? Okay, cool. I'm not alone. Yeah. So that one is easily the worst one, just from out of the whole month. That one was the one that was shockingly bad, and it's getting like 50-50 reviews basically. And I am not really sure how people are liking the movie. Like, I don't see where the enjoyment is in this movie.
Yeah, I don't think you'd get many people complaining about Elvis if it was paired up with this movie. But I suppose with that being out and the Black Phone, obviously, which you've just been to say, obviously Black Phone is the movie to go and watch.
Black Phone is incredible. It's a psychological thriller more than anything else. There is some horror aspects to it, but it definitely is a psychological horror above anything else. Ethan Hawke does amazing, and it's not what you expect, but it's great. The tension that it builds through the whole movie is fantastic. My only thing that I would say about that movie at all, if there's anything that I would say needed to be done more, is they need to pull the trigger a little bit more on what happens to the kids.
Right.
Because they kind of skirt
impact.
around it. Yeah, just for more impact. So they kind of skirt around that, but it's a fantastic movie.
Okay.
Awesome. Well, you know what? There's a whole handful of movies there. Some that you may have seen already, a lot of them you may never have heard of, and some of them you may completely be put off from seeing.
Yeah, it's definitely a few for me, yeah.
Yeah.
Listen, if you like some train wreck movies, there's definitely some in there, so, you know.
Oh, yeah. And trust me, there's going to be an episode on train wreck movies soon enough, and I think you need to come back just for that one.
Oh, believe me, I have some definite train wreck movies that we can talk about.
Well, in that case, let's not waste any time. Let's nominate 5, Steve.
Now's the time to nominate 5.
Nominate 5?
Yes, nominate 5. Not 3 or 4 or 6 or 9. Now's the time to nominate 5.
Yeah, I didn't expect that one, did you? I segued the shit out of that.
Nobody expects to nominate 5.
Nobody expects to nominate 5. Okay, well, Steve, what's nominate 5?
Nominate 5 is the part of the show where we get our guest, if we have one, to nominate 5 of their favourite things. It's entirely dependent on what the guest is. And this week, because we've got Jonas on, we decided that we were going to be a little bit funky with him. So, Andy, what is our nominate 5 for Jonas?
Let's have a look at what could possibly be, with Jonas being a bit of an expert on horror, and not going into the ones we've already kind of mentioned here today.
Mhm.
Jonas, what are the ultimate 5 pieces of dog shit horror movies that you can come out with?
Ooh. Ultimate 5. Okay.
Movies that are
The
so
creme de
bad.
la crap.
The creme de la crap.
Creme de la crap.
Yeah.
And you don't even
Okay.
have to do them in any order because no one does it.
Well, I can tell you what the number one. I'll tell you what number 1 is. No matter what, and that is Exorcist 2, The Heretic. That is
Poor John Bowman.
one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And I need to say something to the side. I'm a completist when it comes to my home media stuff.
Yes.
And I was so sad when I had to buy Exorcist 2 so that my OCD didn't freak out when I looked at my Blu-ray my Blu-ray case
Yeah.
and saw that missing piece right there. I was just like, fuck, I have to buy that movie. Ugh. Like,
It's like a nerve, isn't it?
It is.
In a broken tooth. You just keep having to keep poking at it until you get it fixed.
yeah. It's
That's like the people who own all 5 of the Prophecy movies. Just
Oof.
because they wanted the first one.
oh, ouch. That sucks. That's one that's really hard to go down the road of. I'm really glad that I didn't buy any of those, and you've just reminded me to not even buy the first one. And I also bought all of the Leprechaun movies, by the way, and that's that. So you know how shitty the Prophecy movies are if I'm not even willing to go down that road. So if we're talking top 5 shittiest, this is going to be a lot of sequels and remakes. Okay.
Okay.
It usually is.
So Exorcist 2 for sure is top dog, piece of shit, the worst. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 4 regular ones that like most people will expect, and then I'm going to do a hot take on the end. Okay?
Okay.
So, first one, Exorcist 2. Next one is going to be the newest Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie.
I didn't even bother.
Nobody made one.
It has one redeeming quality, and that is the bus scene. And that's it. The bus scene, even if you just look up that scene, that's all you need to know in that whole movie. And that's where Leatherface goes onto this bus full of insufferable teenagers that try to film him for social media. And he does not like that, so he massacres every single one of them in glorious fashion. Aside from that, it's an unwatchable piece of shit, and nobody should ever watch it. It's terrible. It should never have been made.
Okay.
I mean, there's only really 2 for me. The original, obviously, but my friend Marcus directed the remake in 2003.
I like the remake.
Yeah, Marcus Nispel, a great guy, and he did a great Friday the 13th remake as well. I really
like that
enjoyed it. And his version of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre in 2003 I thought was really good.
Yeah, it really was. It was fantastic. Especially, like, if you're going to reimagine something as gritty and wild as Texas Chainsaw Massacre, what he did with the remake is exactly how you should do it. Like, perfectly done. The new one, this is something that, as a filmmaker, you would especially watch, and it would infuriate you. It is so beyond obvious that this is done on a backlot that it will make your eye twitch. Like when you see it, you like if you saw the ghost town that this is supposed to take place in, it's a fucking film set. It looks like a film set. Like it's ridiculous.
Yeah, that was probably done right up at Golden Oak Ranch or somewhere like that. But
It was filmed in Bulgaria.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, it was filmed in Bulgaria, and the ghost town that they're in couldn't look more like a film set if it tried. It's stupid. But anyway, yeah, News Texas Chainsaw Massacre, absolute trash. The next one, the Nightmare on Elm Street reboot. God bless Jackie Earle Haley. He did what he could with playing Freddy Krueger. But as soon as they CGI'd Freddy Krueger's face and made him look like a turtle, that was the end of the movie. Like, what? How? Why? Why would you do that? And also, if you're gonna redo iconic scenes from The Nightmare on Elm Street, why would you do those in CGI? Why would you do the wall scene in CGI? Why would you not redo the blood geyser scene from the first one?
True.
Like, there's so many things that they did wrong in that one. And it is a painfully bad movie. Painfully bad.
That's very true. I don't know how you could follow them.
No. And then the other one that's the fourth one, before I do the hot take. For me, it's gonna be Leprechaun 4. Leprechaun 4 that's Leprechaun in space.
You can always tell that a franchise has just hit rock bottom when it's such and such in space.
In space, yeah. They did it with Hellraiser. They did it with there's so many
Jason
Hellraisers
X,
that are bad.
and yeah.
Jason X was at least somewhat enjoyable because they leaned into the tongue-in-cheek aspect of it, but Jason X they also did at the right time when they actually had the technological ability to make it look fun. They did Leprechaun in space in like 1996 or some shit like that, so like the digital effects were so bad. So bad. Okay, so here's the hot take.
Here's the steamer.
And it's a more recent movie, and a lot of people definitely won't agree with me. But it's a movie called What Comes at Night, or It Comes at Night.
Yes. Yeah, I've seen this movie.
Okay. I wanted to like that movie a lot. I like everybody involved with that movie, in fact. Joel Edgerton, absolutely love him. Riley, whose last name I can't pronounce ever. Keogh, or I think it's Keough. I just know that.
Keogh.
But I can.
Keogh.
Is it okay?
Keogh.
I love her and everything that I've seen her in. I also, they had a lot of things going for it that I was into. I've never been more pissed off at the ending of a movie after having to sit through the rest of what that movie was than I was on this movie. It's long, it's boring, it has there's no conclusion. You don't get any payoff. There's no payoff whatsoever. So by the time the end of the movie comes along, you don't know what comes at night. They don't tell you what it is, if anything. Like, they don't even give you an idea. Like, it was one of those movies that was long, drawn out, boring. It was too dark. Like, the lighting in it was dog shit. So, like, there was, like, when they wanted to do things that were in the background that were going to scare you or whatever, they darkened it so much that they didn't work. And I watched it also on home media just in case, like, I turned the brightness up and stuff. Nope. It's just the way they filmed the movie. It was very poorly done. And then by the time that you get to the end of the movie, if there was going to be a payoff, if it was a thing, or if it was a disease or an animal or whatever the fuck, nothing. It just cuts right off. It gives you the Sopranos ending, where it just does straight to black. The theater that I was in was so pissed off at the end of this movie. Everybody, there was not one person in that theater that was not furious by the complete lack of an ending, because what we had just sat through was so bad. It was so boring. And this movie somehow has a shitload of good reviews. Like, it's rocking an 87% on Rotten Tomatoes.
See,
That must be like a flashback to Before Sunset for you, Steve.
yeah, I mean, this is just proof that the whole Rotten Tomato system is just it's broken. It's absolutely broken.
Makes no sense.
No.
Makes no sense at all.
Well, we never said it makes sense, and that was the point of what's in the box. But absolutely amazing countdown there of movies to avoid. Unfortunately.
Now, I will say this about Leprechaun 4. I did put it in the list, but also you should watch it just to see how shitty it is, because it's kind of hilarious. Like, it's terrible, but it really is kind of funny. And there's also a movie I want to do as an honorable mention, by the way. I only didn't mention this one because I don't think a lot of people even know it exists. But it's possibly the worst movie ever made. And it is a horror film. It's called Veronica.
Oh, I haven't seen it, but I
We
did
know of
see
it.
the Red Letter Media review that they did.
It's
It
the
looks-
Danzig movie.
Yeah.
And like I said, I only didn't put it on the list because it almost feels like a cop-out. Like, I don't want to kick Danzig while he's down. Like, he's already only 5 feet tall, and he's already, like, he's Danzig, and there could not have been more bad decisions made in the making of a movie than there was in that movie.
God.
The first story has a spider in it that turns into a fully grown person who's wearing a spider suit.
It kind of looks like Goro in the Mortal Kombat movie, doesn't it?
Yeah, he looks like Goro from Mortal Kombat, but his face, his head looks like what's his face from God of War, the video game.
Kratos, yeah.
Kratos, yeah. His head looks like that, but the reason I bring up that spider suit is because there's a part that's very clear halfway through that first story where the spider suit is broken. Like, one of the arms is literally broken, and you can see a giant open seam on the suit, like on his crotch.
Yes.
And he just doesn't fucking change it. He just lets that be a thing for the rest of the half of the story. And also the spider that turns into the spider guy. The actual digital spider looks like it was made on the very first iteration of iMovie. It's just, it's really bad. It's really, really bad. And the woman in the first story, she has eyeballs for nipples, and they cry. They cry actual tears. They cry actual tears when this spider guy kills people. It makes no sense. But the eyeball nipples are very, very clearly put on with like putty. Like, it just, there's so much. That movie alone is so hilariously bad. So that one's an honorable mention, just because if you want to watch a big piece of shit movie, like, okay, the reason I didn't put it on the list is because you should actually watch that movie. It's on Shudder, and you should watch that movie. The other ones, fuck them. This one, you should watch this movie.
Yes.
If
One
just for
thing-
some atrocious performances, yeah.
Yes. Well, the one thing
Atrocious is giving them way too much credit, actually.
Well, the one thing we can guarantee, Steve, is that it's not going to be what's in the box.
What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box?
Oh, his segue game is on point tonight.
Oh,
I will
yes,
say.
it is.
It is. Steve, what's in the box?
Well, what's in the box is the part of the show where Andy tries to improve my movie education, and mostly fails because I'm a Neanderthal. Well, he has got loads of movie titles in a box, and all of them are certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. He's going to pick out the name of a movie at random, and if I have seen it, then I have to go away and watch it the day before we record our next episode. But if I wait, no, did I fuck that up?
You f***ed that up. We've done this for like 49
Jesus
episodes.
Christ,
Steve.
yes.
Come on.
Ah,
Basically, I've got a box certified fresh
Yeah.
movies.
yeah.
If
It
he's seen
pulls
it,
one
he
out.
doesn't have to watch it.
No.
fuck's
Yeah,
sake.
it's a thing. If I've seen the film, I don't have to watch it. If I haven't, then I do. There you go. Blah blah blah. Right, Andy, what have we got from what's in the box?
Okay, so first one I've pulled out. Have you seen? Oh, it's a classic. This. I'd be amazed if you haven't seen it, but then again, I'm amazed by everything you haven't seen. Have you seen Alfred Hitchcock's North by Northwest?
Actually, no, I haven't.
Oh, well, there you go.
Oh,
Now you've got to go and watch North by Northwest. Ready
good
for a
evening.
review.
Yes.
Have you seen that one, Jonas? You must have.
Oh yeah, yeah. I have.
Of course. No spoilers for you, Steve. You'll love it, actually. I think
Yeah.
it'll be right up your street. So, and hopefully Bill will be able to say we've actually chose a good movie for you
Yes.
for once.
What a nice little bit of Cary Grant. Yes.
Yes. Okay, well, an amazing show. Jonas, it's been an absolute pleasure having you here. It's been a fantastic time. We've really heard a lot of great and bad movies over the course of the last month. And before we go, tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, first off, thank you guys for having me on. Hopefully if I come back in July, there's some shittier movies in July, and we can really dig into those. Which I think there is. I think there's going to be. June just happened to be a good month. But my podcast is another goddamn horror podcast. We have a different guest on every week. If we don't have a guest, it's rare, but occasionally if we don't have a guest, we'll do a list episode with just me and the co-hosts Graham Fay and Ryan Danley. And then I actually have a secondary spinoff or a piece of that podcast actually that we do for our Patreon called the Grindhouse. And on that one, I bring in filmmakers, actors, and people that are involved with films, and we deep dive one of their movies or a movie that they particularly enjoy. That one's been cool. We did that with X, which is one of the more recent movies that just came out, Ty West's movie. I did that with X, and then I also did a recent one with Fred Vogel, who is a filmmaker known for making probably the most fucked up indie horror film ever made. And I brought him on to talk about his newest movie, which is a completely different vision from what he's known for, which is very cool. So that's called The Grindhouse. And then lastly, there's one other thing that I have that it's called the Traumedy Hour. And what that is it's actually me bringing on a guest to talk about mental health and trauma and, grief and basically all the things that society tells us not to talk about. So we kind of open that up and we talk about all those things and we make it fun. We make it funny. We make jokes about the things that we've gone through and just kind of try to help remove the stigma from those things and hopefully help out anybody that's listening that might be struggling with their own shit. So that's kind of that's the other thing that we do. So that one's
It's amazing.
Yeah, that one's kind of near and dear to my heart because I've definitely been through some shit in my life. And I know that it was a lot of people, have an issue being silent about that stuff, and we feel like you should talk about it. So that's what we do.
Yeah,
That's amazing.
Yeah, we both been through our own little battles, haven't we?
Yes, I think we're his next two guests.
Yeah.
Listen, I mean, no. All jokes aside, I would love to have you guys on to have a little therapy session on the Traumedy Hour. I think that would be great.
That would
love
be
to.
great.
Yeah.
We have nothing to hide. We're in the entertainment business.
The
We'll come on.
entertainment industry thrives on trauma.
I know.
Oh, exactly. Yeah, that's how we've got through so many fucking weeks of Amber Heard. Jonas, with your stand-up comedy, have you got any gigs coming up?
Oh, yeah, I actually, I produce a show every month in Brooklyn. It's the fourth Thursday of every month. It's actually called the Traumedy Hour as well, where we focus on, the darker side of comedy. So that's every month in Bushwick. You can find me on social media to see when those shows are all happening, because we actually do them all over the city, but the one that's constant is the last Thursday or fourth Thursday of every month. So on Twitter, I'm at Jonas Barnes. On Instagram, I'm at Jonas Barnes Comedy. On Facebook, I actually have multiple profiles because I'm a naughty boy on Facebook, so I had to make a couple. But the one that you will always find me on is the one that has a profile picture that is both Guy Fieri and Willem Dafoe as one person, because I like to give people nightmares.
Oh,
So,
dear God.
It's a brilliant picture. It really is.
It's
I
Willem
get a good laugh out of
Dafieri.
it.
So
William DeFury.
I'm gonna take you to Flavor Town.
Also, I do want to say, for everyone who is listening to this episode, hopefully this episode will make it out in time, but we will be doing for our 50th episode. I cannot believe it. I can't believe who we've had on for just 50 episodes. But we will be doing, hopefully, all fingers crossed, our first kind of live video episode through Facebook, YouTube, and anywhere else we can practically get our hands on. So you can come and join us and come and chat with us and throw loads of abuse our way. We're used to it. And Jonas, I will catch up with you over in Brooklyn as well while I'm there, as of next week.
yeah, absolutely.
We'll get together and plot out what we'll do for July, and we'll get you back on.
Yes.
Yeah, I would love to do this again. So I appreciate you guys having me on, and I always have fun nerding out about movies, and especially ones that are tend to be shitty. So listen, I'm in the horror. I deal with horror stuff, so that's if you don't love a good shitty horror movie, then why are you even watching horror?
In that case, you need to go back and listen to me and Steve doing the watch along of Deep Rising.
Yeah. Schlock. Yeah.
That was
Okay.
quite schlocky.
Yeah.
Well, we are out of here for another week. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we will see you next time, and you'll see us too.
Yes, and if you can withstand the horror, then don't forget you can also follow us on Twitter at Poddywood. You can hop over to the subreddit and join us on Facebook, on LinkedIn. All of the socials is what we do.
Yes, we're probably the only podcast that actually has LinkedIn.
Yeah, no idea why, but we got one anyway. So
You fucking nerds.
I know. We like to get those nerd chicks, those business women who get sick of having recruitment people contact them all day, and people wanting to build their website. And then there's us.
right, but for now, it is a goodbye from me.
I've already left. This is just my answering service.
And we'll see you next time. Bye.
Steve, you've been definitely down to go to the toilet for the last 20 minutes.
About the last hour.